Hello. Welcome to everybody. Have I got a show for you today? If you are returning to my channel, welcome back. I got a lot of new people who are also returning people, and I'm grateful for you. To my day ones, what's up? My people who've been rocking with me forever, thank you for the support. If you are new to my channel, my name is Mariah Sincere, and I do political commentary. I also do life coaching. My website is in the description box if that's something that you're interested in. For those of y'all who do not know, I'm an American who lives abroad. So I talk about American politics. I still pay taxes in the United States. When you move out of the United States, they are going to tax you wherever you are. So I still pay my taxes. So American politics is very much still important to me because American politics is so influential that wherever you're at in the world, it's going to touch you. Whatever happens in the United States is going to touch you. With that said, I was completely unhappy with my life a couple years ago, and I decided that I wanted to change. And I've been through everything: toxic relationships, toxic job, traumatic childhood, and I've been able to come out on the other side and be healthy and be successful in everything that I want to do. So, if you are interested in life coaching, hit me up at ThePassportSis.com. I got you. With that said, also this Wednesday I am doing a members only live, and I'm trying to make that my thing. So for the next 4 weeks, I have scheduled members only lives on Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. This is where I will do a call-in show. It's not really call-in. You can come up on camera. You don't have to come up on camera and show your face if you don't want to. And we can have a conversation. With these topics, I want to delve a little bit deeper and get more into the spiritual side of the politics and give you an opportunity to come speak your piece. So, if that's something that you are interested in, go ahead and become a member. I don't have tiered membership right now, so everybody can come in at the same price, and I don't intend on raising it. So become a member so that you can do the members only live and chit chat with me on Wednesdays. I also give quotes, personal quotes every single day for my members to kind of help get you through life. Life lessons that I've learned. So, I do stuff specifically just for my members. With that said, guys, if you are just now coming in, smash the like button. We got a lot to talk about today. Okay, so one thing that we're going to talk about, I need to put a pin in this, is Trump's tariffs have been rules unconstitutional. And, if for whatever reason he's not going to be able to implement those tariffs, I think it could be disastrous for the economy. So we're going to talk about that. Also, this crazy, insane, demonic, I'm going to call it what it is, demonic man unalived a woman who was minding her business on the train. And like the liberal mayor of that city's first instinct was to come to the defense of houseless people, aka homeless people. I don't know why we continue to play these words with semantics. I mean, since when did homeless become offensive? All homeless means is you are without a home. Okay, anyway, so we're going to talk about that. Um, we are going to talk about JD Vance going nuclear on Twitter, and also, are Americans becoming more religious? Are Americans returning back to God because of everything that has been going on? As a matter of fact, I think I want to talk about that now. So if you are just now coming in, please smash the like button. Please smash the like button. I want to say this. I have noticed, even with myself, for those of y'all who don't know, I was raised up as a Christian. And as I got older, because of a lot of things that happened in the church, I feel like a lot of people, though God's word is true, and the older you get, you realize this, there are people who will use the word of God and their position of power in the word of God to take advantage of people. They will use it for ill doings. They will use it to be able to have access to people, to be able to manipulate people. And I think when you're young and you see that, it has an effect on you. So I've spoken on this before, but I'll speak on it again. When I was younger, um, there used to be a lot. Every church I went to, not everyone, but especially when I was a teenager, majority of the churches that I went to, either the pastor or somebody close to the pastor was always trying to find a way to essay me. Like, was always being overly smexual with me, was always making suggestive comments. I remember it got to the point where like one of the pastors, y'all know I was in foster care, and one of the pastors came over and he made a comment like, "Oh, if I was younger, you would be mine." He came over and I would go hide in my room. And my foster parent was like, "Why don't you like them? Why don't you ever want to be around them?" And it's like, because I sense that this person means me no good. And also his brother, who just got out of prison, made a pass at me at church one day. So, I mean, this is one of many stories that I have to tell. And I think like over time, I just became rebellious. So a young mind and a young heart doesn't understand these are evil men who are using God's name in vain. And it doesn't help that a lot of people who are evil and have bad intentions are very blessed with spiritual gifts, such as the gift of gab and being able to move people spiritually. You know, Satan was a beautiful musician. They said that Satan made beautiful music. And I think that's part of the reason why music is being used today to corrupt society, right? But it sounds so good. Well, the new music, not so much, but y'all know what I mean, right? So it got to the point where when I turned 18 and I moved out on my own, I turned away from God, you know, completely. I stopped going to church. I stopped praying. And then I went to a very liberal college. And I think in college, that is a time I would call this the story of the prodigal son. Now, me personally, I wasn't just wilding out, but I was in a toxic relationship. So it kind of made me, I didn't realize how much it was depressing me and it made me lose a lot of hope and faith in life. But then on top of that, I was in this toxic relationship. Most of my professors are very liberal. Then we had this pet place in college called the Quad, where people would just go debate ideas, and we would do it in a very unhealthy way. We weren't really there to understand each other. Everybody was just there to win the debate. And that's why I'm kind of always confused, especially when I see even the conservatives go on these campuses to argue with these kids. Most of the time you're not really being effective. They're not at a point where they can listen to you. You know, I didn't move towards conservatism until I was able to mature and I had my own child and I could have some skin in the game in this life, right? Um but anyway, what happened is I actually became an atheist. I started listening to like Richard Hawkins and uh Neil deGrasse Tyson, you know, those type of people. And I just became more science driven, more atheist. But the more that I moved away from God, and I didn't know it at the time, the more I drifted into despair. I mean, I would go weeks and weeks and weeks to where I didn't get out the bed or I didn't do anything. I didn't clean up. The only thing I would do was get up and go to school and like come home and just the young people call it bed rot, right? And eat things that were like really unhealthy. And I just couldn't understand why I couldn't get out of this mental funk. But you know, when there was an argument about politics, all of a sudden I had the energy to argue and debate and try to get people to see my way about things. So I turned to atheism and then I got into a relationship that, hey, what's up? Good afternoon, Jamal. Good to see you. I got into a relationship that was a consequence of me turning away from God. And what do I mean by that? If I would have been the person that I am today, Like now I get up and I pray and I make sure that I'm like reading scriptures and I pray over my food and I have gratitude. And it's not me trying to be a good person. It's me just genuinely being thankful for what God has done in my life. But I wouldn't have got into a relationship with a man like that because once you draw closer to God, there are certain activities and lifestyles that people engage in that you know this is not somebody that can be a part of my life, or this is not somebody who I'm in alignment with or equally yoked, right? And then it's like I got into the relationship and he was, let me say this, he was kind to me, right? And at that time, to me, that was like, my God, somebody's nice to me. That was a big deal. So he was always very kind to me. But again, we don't live the same kind of lifestyle. We're not on the same walk. This is a person that's not at all spiritually inclined or has fear of God for his actions, you know? So anyways, I got into this relationship with this man. He ended up breaking up with me a couple of years later, which, looking back, thank God, because then I really began my spiritual walk. And it started with me uh getting into Buddhism. And some of y'all might not like that, especially if you're a Christian. You might feel like that's false worshiping idols. And for that, I would say there are a couple schools of Buddhism. The type of Buddhism that I practice, which is traditional Theravada Buddhism, they do not worship the Buddha as God. It's more of a you meditating and going inward and detaching from outcomes. That was more of the line of Buddhism that I was in. I didn't go into the Mahayana. There's different schools. I don't want to get into it. But also, the deeper that I got into Buddhism, the closer I actually got to God in Christianity. Because believe it or not, there are a lot of Christians that go to Buddhist temple and they go to Buddhist temple to meditate, or they go to Buddhist temple to learn how to relax their mind. I don't know if that's making sense to y'all. If y'all are just now coming in, please smash the like button. But anyway, I said that to say this. I feel like we're going through a time. A lot of people are like, these are dark days. These are the last days, and I don't know if these are the last days. It may or may not be the last days. Time will tell. But what I will say is, whatever is happening, the shift in the atmosphere, I notice it is causing a lot of people in my age demographic to do one of two things. They're either falling into complete despair or they're drawing closer to God. And we have to see that for the ones who were drawing closer to God, we have to see that as a positive. I have a cousin of mine who he's always been a good person, but again, he was just young, early in his 20s, and he was out here, dating all different kind of women and doing what he wants to do. And now he's having Bible study at his class. We went to his church baptism last year, and he's young. It's not a situation where he waited until he got older to turn himself to God. All of my friends are drawing closer to God and getting more in their word. And I feel like a lot of people that aren't doing that, they just kind of failed to read the room. And what's up, D Mally? Hey, good to see you. Good to see you. Y'all smash that like button. I feel like a lot of people have not been paying attention to what happened pre the Trump administration. I feel like liberalism, even though I agree with certain things that liberals promote, and we really would have to go case by case, I feel like overall it promotes being undisciplined. What do I mean by that? It seems like with the liberals and the conservatives, especially when you have the liberals against the Christian conservatives, the ultra Christian conservatives, anything that promotes debauchery and not being disciplined, it's always promoted on the liberal side. And as I got older, I began to see that. It started with me opening my eyes with the whole trans movement and what was going on there. I was like, that have to be the center of what we're talking about? Why is that such a big deal? If this is like less than 1% of the population, why is that taking such center stage? Or why do we have to promote transitioning children? And then on top of that, every time I would turn on the TV and I watch these liberal shows, they're hypersexualized. And don't get me wrong, there was a time where a lot of that used to be more regulated. I'm not saying that our programming has to be completely milk toast, but it was like they were completely pushing the boundaries to where you would watch a show and that seemed to be the only thing that the show had to offer. It's not even good anymore or offering substance. We just have to see sex scenes, whether they be straight or homosexual, but you're definitely gonna get homosexual scenes. Like, definitely gonna get that. And it's like, who is promoting this? Okay, liberals. So you got liberals promoting homosexuality every chance they get. And then you have liberals promoting trans ideology and non-binary ideology every chance that they get. And then when we talk about sexual discipline, liberals are always on the side of people cannot be sexually disciplined. So we have to accept everything. And then it got to the point where even acts that used to be taboo, y'all are rapping about this stuff in the music. Um Backdoor play, first of all, it used to just be taboo to 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 put your mouth on people's parts. I'm not trying to be vulgar here, but now it's like that's like regular. That's too basic for y'all. Now y'all have to talk about backdoor play, right? And then it's like as as the more this stuff is getting promoted, then in real life, I'm talking to women and they're like, "Yes, I'm dating a man and he likes this kind of stuff back there." And it's like it's like we are spiraling into vulgarity. And it's like every time a conservative brings up a point about even with the whole abortion thing. Now I support abortion up to a degree. It's not just the all and I have my reasons for it. But I understand why conservatives are like, the vast majority of this could be avoided if y'all would just practice some discipline. But what I've learned is liberals don't want to be disciplined. They have a don't yuck my yum mindset. They have a live for today mindset. Do what makes you happy. And the reality of the matter is, if you have to engage in all of that debauchery to be happy, there's something wrong going on the inside. If you can't be content with basic wholesomeness or just having one partner, or if you can't be content, like if the basis of your reality and your happiness is rooted in how sexually unhinged you can be, you are not happy. You have a hunger that's insatiable. So I feel like we were getting put on notice that the time for this stuff was going to be up. And what's going on right now, and why a lot of people on the left are upset, is because now we are in a time that is calling you to practice discipline. I'm going back to even just abortion getting outlawed in many of these liberal states. You know, a lot of these women's problems could be solved at that in that regard. To me, when that happens, my mindset meant, now I already was not the type of person to be sleeping around. But my mindset automatically went into, okay, this is going to call me to be even more disciplined. This is going to call me to be even more in tune with my body because I knew I didn't want to get on birth control, right? This is calling me to track my cycles more. This is causing me to really vet the men who I allow into my space and take my time more, or it's okay to go a long time without sleeping with anybody, right? So I saw that as a call to discipline, and liberals see that and they automatically have this self-defeating mindset as I can't be disciplined. Right. And I know that there are people who go through other situations, raping or family members touching them, and, like, I get it. I understand, but that's not the vast majority of cases. Oh, it's mid-morning in the West. Okay, good. We're not sexual prudes, but Gen Z is not romantic, but conservatives are terrible about sex. This is when the left is more realistic. I think the conversation has gone beyond realistic. Now, what I will say is there's value, right? And you don't really see this until you get older, and people punish you for it too, right? And that's why I love the story of the prodigal son, because oftentimes people have to walk away from God in order to be able to walk back to him. In a perfect world, you could tell people the lesson and they would learn it. But the reality of the matter is people get warnings, but they have to walk that walk. And you know what? There's not any shame in that. The shame is in not learning. And when you don't learn the lesson, you will continue to be put through the same test. You will continue to go through the same cycles. Y'all ever heard of read in the Bible about the reprobate mind? These are people who are stuck in cycles and they cannot get out, right? And then eventually the wages of sin is what? Death. It just is what it is, right? Um, but I feel like conservatives, they offer an alternative to the debauchery. Liberals are not realistic. Liberals are extremes. Liberals, there have been so many gross, disgusting fetishes that I have heard liberals talk about that, and only a sick in the mind person would indulge in something like that. And liberals will be like, "Don't yuck their yum." No, that's gross. That's yucky. That's disgusting. That turns my stomach. But we're supposed to act like that's normal. The middle ground would be okay to say to remember when you used to be progressive, when you were like, okay, well, it's unrealistic to expect people to wait till marriage. Okay, that used to be the progressive thought. And then it turned into it's normal to engage in complete debauchery. So in my opinion, the liberals are not on the middle ground with this. They're very much I don't even know what to call it, to be honest. Right? And with the conservatives, I think there was just way too much shaming going on. But now we're seeing a part of me is like, were the conservatives right all along? Because when you don't keep that level of sexual uh lust in check, it's a complete spiraling race to the bottom. And then people begin to make the excuses of, well, this is my nature. Look, I said this before, I'll say this again. There are a lot of things that I want to do that seem natural to do that I have to refrain from doing. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Every time somebody insults me, my backhand jumps. Like my pimp hand jumps and I want to slap the hell out of them. But I am not an animal and I fear jail. I cannot make it in there with those dykes and those lesbians. I'm sorry, I can't. Shout out to my LGBT subscribers, but I just can't do it, boo. So guess what? I keep my hands to myself. And I can't blame a natural reaction for the consequences that would come with me not keeping my hands to myself. That's what comes with age, growing wisdom and maturity, self-control and self-discipline. But I do feel like because we're coming into this era where the job market is so bad and the economy is so bad, a lot of people are drawing closer to God. And that's one thing I will say that I do appreciate about Donald Trump is because he's bringing it into the conversation. A lot of young people, a lot of millennials are bringing this into the conversation. Gen Z, a lot of Gen Z is actually becoming more conservative or is turning to God, and I feel like right now, what we're doing is we're seeing a correction of a ship that was headed in the wrong direction. Okay. And here's the thing, liberals can bring up Donald Trump's past with his affairs and his three wives. That's another problem with the liberal mindset. It is this again, it's these purity tests. You could have never done anything wrong in your life in order for you to be walking on the right path. Now, I believe in practicing discernment. because there are some people who have will say that they have changed and they will talk about God, but they're not really walking that walk. They're still doing all the same things that they used to do. As a matter of fact, they're doing worse because now they might have the following or the covering or the means to do that, right? But like since Trump's last term in office, we haven't seen him philandering with any women. There haven't been any more women coming out with scandals. Trust me, if there was another Stormy Daniels, she would have been got on the news. The liberals would have been found at. So we haven't heard about him doing illicit substances, or we've never even seen Donald Trump drink liquor, right? And I'm not saying that makes you a bad person if you do those things. What I'm saying is he lives a life that is evident that for years now, he's been on the straight and narrow. So I can listen to somebody like that. I can listen to somebody who's had all the money and temptation in the world, but they choose to be disciplined because it's easy to be disciplined when the temptation isn't there or you don't have the means or the power to do what you want to do. But when you have everything at your feet and you still say, no, I'm going to refrain from these women, I'm going to refrain from that alcohol, I'm going to refrain from these illicit substances, then you're somebody worth listening to. That shows me that you're serious about your walk. God is definitely giving America the punishment that all the other equally nasty world empires got. The Greeks, Romans, and Babylonians, to me, were the real freaks. Jamal, I don't understand. Jamal, please explain to me the basis of I feel like you don't like America at all. And honestly and truly, Jamal, if God is giving America its punishment, then what about what's going on in the rest of the world? Because let's be clear, the economy is bad dang near everywhere now. When I was in Colombia, they're feeling it. They're feeling a retraction in the job market and the economy. And they've never been an empire or had the power and influence that the United States has had. They're feeling it all across Europe. They're feeling it even here in Peru. In every country that you go to, they are feeling the consequences of this economy. So if this is really America bad, God punishing America, then why is it everybody else? Why aren't their economies flourishing? Why isn't their job market flourishing? Because every country right now is complaining about the same thing. AI taking over, a lack of jobs, rental and housing market is way overpriced. Business is slowing down. So this is something that we as a people are collectively experiencing. Why did you move if you like American music culture and the migrant crisis? Liberalism is equally a part of American society. I say this all the time. I moved from the United States because I can't afford it. Can't afford it. I literally cannot afford it. So I went where I could afford it. I don't think the United States is a bad place. I went where I could afford it. I didn't want to drive a car anymore. And the only places that you can live and not drive a car in New York, I'm from Texas. I can't afford to live in New York. I don't even have a degree or experience in a job market to where I could go to New York and get a job. Going from paying $1,500 in rent to having to pay minimum $5,000 in rent, I wasn't going to be able to do that. So I went where I could win. There are plenty of Americans who can afford the economy or make those type of moves. I as a single parent, I could not. Another reason why I moved is because I needed to be able to homeschool my daughter. But like let's be clear, in the countries that I'm in, the people who are having to work on the salaries, I'm blessed enough to where I have access to US dollars. So I'll never say I hate my country because at the end of the day, I make US dollars. At the end of the day, the companies that have hired me overseas, they would not have hired me if I was not an American citizen. So let's be clear. The opportunities that I have even overseas all came from me being a United States citizen. The people who are having to survive on their local wage, they are struggling. They are complaining about the economy just the same as an American is complaining about the economy. And that's facts. Now, are there some cultural differences? Yes. For example, in Colombia, the people are friendlier. They're very not, and not all parts of Colombia. In Medellin, like, but that's not everywhere you go. Here in Peru, they act like American. Like here in Peru, matter of fact, where I'm at in Lima, they act like New Yorkers. Like I've been told off a couple times. Black culture is not the center of American culture. It is a huge part of it. It is not the center of it. And look at our culture. Y'all got to stop with that narrative. Black culture is a huge part of American culture. It is not the center of it. Other cultures continue contribute to the overall collective. Anyway, okay. So I want to revisit this clip. I found this on Rapid Response on Twitter. I want to revisit this clip that Donald Trump put out in 2023 about us returning to our Christian core. Guys, please smash the like button. Share my video if you care. That liking would really help. That helps people know that I am on live. Let me check my audio. All right. Okay, so I found this on Rapid Response 47 on X.
Under crooked Joe Biden, Christians and Americans of faith are being persecuted like nothing this nation has ever seen before. Catholics, in particular, are being targeted, and evangelicals are surely on the watch list as well. Over the past 3 years, the Biden administration has sent SWAT teams to arrest pro life activists. The FBI has been caught profiling devout Catholics as possible domestic terrorists and planning to send undercover spies into Catholic churches, just like in the old days of the Soviet Union. Catholics, you cannot vote for the Democrats. You cannot even think about voting for Biden. What they're doing to you is shocking. A new report from the House Judiciary Committee revealed that Crooked Joe's henchmen at the FBI abused their power and, quote, singled out Americans who are pro-life, pro-family, and who support the biological basis for sex and gender distinctions as potential domestic terrorists.
Now, what I will say is I've even noticed the shift on YouTube. I remember at one point, if especially if you were a smaller YouTube, if you had a conservative viewpoint, they were censoring you out the wazoo. Like even me getting on here and talking about my opinions on trans issues under the Biden Harris administration, you could not do stuff like that, right? Um, so I have noticed a shift, and what I will say is I do feel like at one point Christians were being targeted. Even when I think about a lot of these mainstream artists and them wearing the upside down cross or Lil Nas X. And y'all remember that video he did where he was like the devil? It was just kind of like the blatant disrespect of one particular religion because they weren't disrespecting any other religion. They were singling out Christianity. To me, it was so blatantly disrespectful. And people could say, a lot of people's arguments was like Christians um deserve it because of a lot of the shaming that happened when we grew up. But again, a lot of Christians don't behave that way, or a lot of Christians don't live their life being super judgmental. I just feel like it's a situation where the nails that stick out the most get the hammer, or the loudest voices in the room cause the most outrage. But there are a lot of Christians who, even though they might not necessarily agree with the way that you're living, they will handle you with love, or they won't try to shame you As a matter of fact, some of the most accepting people in terms of like there will be people who know you did bad things in your life, but Christians are probably some of the people who are the most willing to overlook a lot of things and say, "Okay, you changed your ways and turn to God," right? I find like the same liberals who say that Christians are too judgmental, if they know that you did something wrong, they will and you tried, let's say you actively tried to change your ways and make amends, they will still hold it over your head that you did these things. They are some of the least forgiving and most judgmental people. So I feel like whether you're a Christian or not, you have to check your heart and intention towards people. They will never disrespect Islam. That's what got my mom upset under Obama. She feels like, why don't they ever disrespect Muslims? First of all, let's be clear, Muslims are not having it. They're not having it. And then on top of that, for the longest, if you made the slightest critique of Islam, you were labeled an Islamophobe by the liberal media, which again, that was akin to being called a racist. You could not criticize the way that they were running their countries or how they were treating women or some of their ideologies. And again, I don't want to throw every person who is a practitioner of Islam under the same umbrella. I have met some very kind Muslims in my life that were some of the best people that I ever met. But when I when I look at how a lot of these countries are being honestly and truly, I love to travel and I've never had any interest in traveling to a Muslim country as a woman. For a, all that we like to talk about the West and say, the West is people like to say, I don't believe this, that the West is anti-woman and they try to pretend we haven't come a long way. I would much rather be a woman in the United States and not just the United States, any country in the Americas before I would want to be a woman in a Muslim country. But it's like if you say that, then you're labeled as a Islamophobe. But the things that they can arrest you for, like there are countries where if I went out with this top, with this shoulder out, I would be in jail. They are not forgiving at all, especially hold on. I don't know what that is. What's that? Liberals don't forgive a thing. They don't. They don't. They don't. They hold on to everything. That's part of the reason why we're messing these kids up. We can't forgive our parents for how they raised us. I remember as I was a liberal, when I was a liberal, it kind of became popular for us to like out our parents for the trauma that we experienced. A lot of us, if you were Gen X and a millennial, were latchkey kids. We walked to school by ourselves, came home, washed ourselves, cooked our own food while our parents were at work, cleaned the house, and handled the household responsibilities. And we went outside and we were gone until I was gone until after the street life. I came back home when I wanted. But uh not just that, sometimes the spankings were uh they were a little bit overly aggressive. And I'll say a lot of our parents were kind of checked out. They worked, they took care of the bills, but they were checked out. Or they didn't really pay us the attention that they should have, or they allowed a lot of things to go on. And as you grow and as you mature and you have your own children, your goal shouldn't be, I'm going to parent completely opposite from what my parents did. Your mindset should be, I want to parent the most effective way possible. But what liberals did is we could not forgive our parents and we couldn't give them grace. So how millennials chose to parent was, I'm going to do everything the complete opposite of my parents. When really some of the things that your parents did were effective. Now you have a whole bunch of bad children. Now the millennials have raised the generation of YNs that are out here terrorizing the community, the teachers, everybody. And it's all because we moved in a spirit of unforgiveness and could not come to terms with the fact that our parents did the best that they could with the information that they had at the time. And now we as a society are dealing with the consequences of that unforgiveness. But millennials will trash Christians all day and call them judgmental. When our judgment is having negative consequences on society. You don't have to be a Christian to be judgmental to the point where it has an adverse effect on society. That is not reserved exclusively to Christians. Very true on the parenting part. Both me and my kids are traumatized and they are YNs. Yeah. So, we're learning that that wasn't the best route to go. That wasn't the right mindset to have, and that we should have been more forgiving.
They consider them to be domestic terrorists. Can you believe it? This horrific weaponization of federal law enforcement against Christians is totally un American. It is also a violation of civil rights. As president, I will create a new federal task force on fighting anti Christian bias. It will be led by a reformed Department of Justice, but it will involve many agencies and departments. Its purview will be to investigate all forms of illegal discrimination, harassment, and the persecution of Christians in America, as well as the use of taxpayer dollars to promote anti Christian bigotry. Among other initiatives, the task force will review the past DOJ persecutions and prosecutions for evidence of anti Christian prejudice, and it will also look at government agencies, universities, and major corporations that have adopted anti Christian diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. Under my leadership, never again will the federal government be used to target religious believers. Americans of faith are not a threat to our country. Americans of faith are the soul of our country. We will protect Christians and people of faiths. We will defend religion. We will defend our first.
I think part of the reason why the disrespect of Christianity intensified, under the Biden Harris administration, but really it's been going on for a long time, is because of the rise of the LGBT movement. And I feel like this increased since LGBT marriage was deemed constitutional, right? And let me say this. I don't have a dog in the fight as to whether or not gay people can or cannot be married. And if you're like a diehard practicing Christian, you believe that marriage should be between men and women. It's like in my heart, that's what I believe, right? In my heart, that's what I believe. But I also understand that even though our country was founded by Christians and the majority of the people in our country are Christians, and I believe that Christian values are good for us to go by, we also do have to understand that in this country, there are going to be people who don't think and believe like you. um, so in my heart of hearts, I only believe men and women should be getting married. But at the same time, I also came from an experience where I have a little brother who is my gay. Matter of fact, both of my brothers are gay. Okay. One is out, one is not. And particularly with my little brother, we knew that he was going to be gay from the time he was little. And I know another little boy who, since he was a baby, he was walking with a switch, and I said in my, oh, he's gonna be gay. But everybody else was in denial. So I do believe that there are some people who are genuinely born like that, and you could tell. We used to make fun of my little brother from a time we were very young and call him gay, and then it was like when he finally came out when he was a teenager, he was, like, surprised, and we were like, everybody already knew. But then I also do believe that an agenda was being pushed to make people more curious. I do believe that young boys and young women who would otherwise have not engaged in that kind of activity were being influenced by media, by TV, by it being so socially acceptable, and by it being suggested And by them having such easy access to pornography, I do believe young boys and girls who would not have otherwise engaged in that type of behavior began to engage in that type of behavior, and then they could do it without being judged because everybody else was doing it.
First Amendment, and we will restore the rule of law in
I was making a point there. Uh, but I feel like this sexual looseness and fluidity is in such opposition to what Christians believe that this was bound to come to a head, right? And in my opinion, I think on this particular issue, for the most part, the Christians should win. I think it's for the betterment of our society that those type of things do remain things that are seen as more taboo. That doesn't mean, for example, I don't think that a person should get fired because they're gay. But I do remember a time when I was growing up, if we had a teacher that was a homosexual, we did not know. People could speculate, but they never confirmed it or they never talked about it. Now, they could do whatever they wanted to do, and people might say that's wrong. They should be able to talk about these things freely in front of the kids. But I personally believe that it is confusing. And they say, well, oh, that will help other, the children feel comfortable who are dealing with those feelings. In my opinion, that's between them and their parents. And when they get older and out of their parents' house, they can experiment and deal with those feelings however they want to. Life is not fair. I said this before, I'll say it again. Life is not fair. We all have a cross we have to bear. We all have things that we might not can talk to everybody about, or we all have things that might feel shameful, or we all have things that might cause people to not accept us. Some things we can change, some things we can't change. So it's not everybody's job to accept you in life. And it just is what it is. The people who are supposed to be in your life will be in your life. But I feel like due to the moral degradation and the debauchery that our country has become, we need to rein a lot of that back in. We honestly and truly do. And I have absolutely no problem with grown homosexual people doing what they want to do in the privacy of their home or going to the gay club and doing all that. I don't think you should go to jail. I think your job should be protected. I think you should have equal access to health care. But enough is enough in terms of the influences it's having on our children. And one might say, oh, well, they would have been doing this. Now it's just people can talk about it. So we know it's out and open. No, this is a different level. I told you I was watching the young man. I'm going to have to bring up his video one day, and there were other young men who were writing to him and confessing that the gooning to meeting up with transgenders to engage in those type of activities pipeline is real. Men who were saying, I would have never thought about this, or I would have never been interested in this. Now I'm meeting up with these trans women in hotel rooms because I just went deeper and deeper and deeper down the rabbit hole when I was watching corn. I think that honestly and truly, I think that should be banned. I think that should be banned. It's having too much of an adverse effect on society. The whatever benefits we would have to keeping it are far outweighed by the problems that it is causing with people being able to emotionally attach to people, with the problems it's causing in people's relationships, with the problems that it's causing health wise. A lot of these boys, they're getting into their early 20s and now they're dealing with ED because they been doing that for so long. They're on pills. It's a lot. It's a lot. So honestly and truly, I think that should be outlawed. Okay. I went into a whole tirade. Give me 1 second. I want to pull up this other clip that I saw. Guys, if y'all are just now coming in, please smash the like button. Okay, so I saw this on Twitter. Scott Turner reposted this. Give me 1 second. Yes, Scott Turner reposted this today. This was of an interview that he did on Fox News. And he was basically praising Donald Trump for bringing God back into the conversation on a national level with our country.
Not only the HUD secretary, you were also an associate pastor. And you say, under Donald Trump, faith is back in our government. Why is this important?
Well, Ainsley, we have a president that believes in the power of prayer. We have a president and a cabinet and an administration that not only believes in it, but we act on it. We pray in our cabinet meetings. We pray for our country. We pray for our constituents. And so when you see this being modeled, at the highest level of our government, it is a hope and an encouragement to the American people that God Almighty is the most important, and to submit under.
Because guess what? We're coming into a time where you can't do it on your own. The president can't do it on his own. That's too hard of a job. That's too difficult of a task. I'd rather have a president in office that is promoting prayer, because guess what? In order for you to lead a nation, you got to be willing to pray, humble yourself, come before God, and listen to God about the moves that you're about to make. So I'd rather see that in office before I see somebody who's acting like it's wrong to be a Christian. Honestly and truly, before I come get on these lives with y'all, I pray. There are so many times where I want to say certain things, but it's like, no, that's for the betterment of me. That's not for the betterment of what people need to hear. But it takes discernment. It takes God for you to know these things.
His will, and to submit to him for the American people as we carry out these assignments is not only important, but I believe a great encouragement for our country.
You're not only the HUD secretary,
Okay. So that was HUD Secretary Scott Turner speaking on him just being happy, being elated that Donald Trump is bringing God back into the forefront. So I'm going to get off of that conversation for right now. How do you feel about it though? Y'all leave it in the comment section if you're watching the replay. Do you feel yourself drawing nearer or further from God the more that we are experiencing this shift, these troubles in the economy? Um, yeah, y'all let me know. With that said, I want to shift to other news. So, y'all, I saw the most terrible video. Like, I just can't even believe what I saw. So there was a woman who was a Ukrainian immigrant, and she got on the train, and a man just out of nowhere unalived her. Now, I'm from Dallas, Texas. So I remember stories of people being stabbed on the train. So as long as I can remember, homeless people, people hate it when I keep it real. People hate it when you say this. Homeless people stabbing people on the bus. Like that was a thing in Dallas. Is it something that happens all the time? No, but it's definitely something that happened. And you know what? I want us to ditch this narrative that all homeless people are mentally ill people. They're just stigmatized. And we need to pretend that we are not dealing with a dangerous group of people. Let's keep it all the way 1000. Not every homeless person is mentally ill, right? Let's start there. But if you are homeless, the likely and genuinely homeless, I'm not talking about these people that have a home to go to or some type of hotel, but they come outside and panhandle. I'm talking about people who have been living under a bridge for years and years. In order for you to be comfortable in that situation and to stay in that situation, you something is not right. And a lot of these people, and I'm saying this is somebody who has a mentally ill mother. My mother has schizophrenia. Okay. And as a matter of fact, I don't even know where she's at. She's missing, right? And it's not that people were unwilling to help my mother. It was that my mother would not accept the help. And she was highly volatile and very dangerous. She would attack you. She would literally attack you. My mom went to prison because she unalived a man, and they let her go on a lesser charge because she was too mentally incompetent to withstand trial. But she admitted to me that she did it, right? So I'm saying this as somebody who has a mother who is mentally ill and experience homelessness due to it. A lot of the times, another reason why people who are mentally ill are homeless is because their family members don't feel safe with them living in the house. So, us pretending like these people who are homeless, and I'm bringing this up because the man who perpetrated the attack was a homeless man. Us acting like a lot of homeless people aren't dangerous, that is going to get you jacked up out here in these streets. Because of my mother, I've always rejected that narrative that homeless people are just people minding their own business. When you have all these voices talking to you where you're sitting up and talking to yourself, you don't know who in there talking to them and what they're telling them to do. Some might say it's demons. So I always make it a point. There are some homeless people, my discernments lets me know who I should interact with, but there are some homeless people where I will stop and I will give them something. I will try to give them money. I've done that plenty of times. But as far as being in too close of a proximity to them, especially when I see they're doing things like looking off, talking to themselves, scratching themselves too much, if they look like they're on something, I make sure I stay away from them. And I'm not blaming this girl. She looked like she got on the train and she was just minding her business. I'm going to pull up the video. But this whole narrative about you should just, you know, look at homeless people as if this is a regular situation and you shouldn't be on guard. That is not smart. That is not wise. Most homeless are mentally ill, but they are not dangerous. I've seen too many attacks. I've seen too many homeless people attack women. Y'all remember when they got on Anna Kasparian because she talked about how a homeless man came up behind her and groped her, and the liberals were upset. There was that woman who got hit in the face with the crowbar. So again, will the majority of homeless people attack you? Probably not. But what I'm saying is kind of like the saying that we have in Colombia, no dar papaya. Don't give a reason. Don't give them the opportunity. Okay. Let me pull this up. Give me 1 second. I want to pull the story up. It's dangerous. Here's the and this is the message that I've been trying to get across, not just today, but just in general. All of this liberal mindset of accept everybody and don't use your common sense and have that some, not all, that is a luxury mentality to have. If you're walking around looking like a YN, I don't care if you have a white collar job and you are the owner of a Fortune 500 company. If you're walking around with tattoos all on your face and your neck, because I have a child to go back to, I'm going to assume that you don't give a damn and I don't want to be near you. Okay. So I'm going to pull up the video from WBT News in Charlotte. It says graphic video shows moments before and after deadly light.
Que venda por vos por solo $20 al mes. Si tienes una tienda de Shopify.
Okay. So here we see the man. Now, pay attention because he's moving, he's shifting around. You'll see he's kind of mumbling things to himself. He looks uneasy. He's shaking his head like he's having an inner conversation. Y'all, I think this is demons. Y'all can talk about chemical imbalance all you want to. This is spiritual warfare. This is demons.
This stop is Stanley Park Station. Please exit right.
Now here she comes, completely unaware. She's tuned out. Y'all will see she has her earphones in and she has her cell phone and she's going to sit down. One thing that I am very grateful for, um, and I think in the United States, we've kind of had the luxury. I've talked about this, how America is a very high trust society. It was a very high trust society. It is no longer that. And I feel like we are failing to adapt to the fact that we have moved from a high trust society to a low trust society, right? And part of that has to do with the acceptance of a lot of debauchery, a lot of the mental illness, a lot of the brainwashing from the music, a lot of people coming into our country that don't necessarily share the same morals and values. Several factors, and Americans are not adapting. So this is something that I personally, because I've been in Colombia and I'm in South America, I would never get onto any form of public transportation and be in my phone and have my earphones in. I put my I zip my phone up and it's normally going to be somewhere in front of me to where somebody can't get it, and all I'm doing is watching people. But that's something we're not trained to do. We're kind of trained to zone out in the United States. Even when people are driving down the street, all of that texting and stuff, if you do that in Latin America, you're going to end up 6 feet under, because a lot of people look at driving signs and lights as suggestions. As much as we like to think people drive bad in the United States, go to other places and you will see, relatively speaking, Americans follow traffic rules. So it's like he kind of notices her, but he's a little dazed. He's a little out of it. Looks like he might be looking at her through the window.
Please stand clear. Doors are closing. Train is about to move.
Wow. Notice how everybody else is on their phone. Like, nobody, here's a crazy thing. Y'all will see, nobody even noticed that this happened. And like, you better believe that if something like this happens in somewhere like Colombia, that's a very low trust society, people are gonna see it immediately. Yes, do you have some people who get on the metro and get on their phone? Yeah, but like the majority of people have sense enough to know I need to be aware of my surroundings right now. So they don't show it. Thank God. I don't want to see it. But he just reaches over her and stabs her. So they show him pulling out the knife. So he gets up and he tries to walk off. Nobody sees it yet. Nobody sees it yet. Nobody's reacting. None of these people notice. Y'all see, this is how much as a culture we have become extremely excluded and isolated and in our own bubbles, how we are not aware of our surroundings. Nobody notices that he just knifed this girl up and that she is transitioning. That is scary. It's really sad. Something like this happens to you and people can't immediately come to your defense, and it's not because they're bad people. It's just the way that we've been socialized. I think this man just now looking and noticing there's blood. I think they're all kind of looking like, what's going on? Nobody knows. They still don't realize what's going on. They might think that he's bleeding out. And I'm like, nobody's making a fuss. He's about like nothing. There should be way more commotion. Maybe I just can't see. I think they're in the back now trying to resuscitate her. I think he walked to another part of the train.
This stop is East West Boulevard Station. Please exit right.
Now he gets off. Okay, now we see some people running. This is crazy. Now he's trying to take his shirt off or his sweater off because he doesn't want all that blood on him. Boy, you could go take 1,000 baths and that blood is still on your hands. Y'all can't tell me that these are not demonic forces that this man is wrestling with. And honestly and truly, I'm gonna go ahead and say it. People might get upset with what I'm about to say, but it needs to be said. I'm done watching that. It needs to be said. I feel like with people like that, the punishment should be capital punishment. You can't you can't rehabilitate that. That is what you call a reprobate mind. There are people who God has completely taken his hand off them and ain't nothing you can do for them. Uh, have y'all seen The Walking Dead? Y'all let me know in the comments if y'all seen The Walking Dead. There was a scene in The Walking Dead where there was a little girl who y'all know they were, the zombies, and there was a little girl and her sister. And this little girl was convinced that these zombies are her friends. She's like, they're our friends. Now she sees what these zombies are able to do, that they eat people, but she's so mentally ill that in her mind, the zombies are friends. So she let one of the zombies attack her sister and turn her into a zombie. So the sister unalived, she's a zombie. And Carol was like, we don't have you are going to put everybody in danger. So this is a little girl. And Carol had to make the hard decision to put her to sleep, to unalive her. Uh People might think that this is a controversial take, but people who are that mentally ill and they do this kind of stuff, I'm not saying uh just for the strength of them being mentally ill alone. No, once they've done something like this, what is the point in putting them in jail? They are a danger to society. They're never going to get out of jail. If anything, they put other inmates in danger. They put the people who are holding them, like the inmates, the prison guards, uh, anybody who has to work with them, the psychologists, you put their lives in danger, all for somebody who cannot be rehabilitated. It's not possible. And we need to stop lying to ourselves. So I believe that these type of people should be an eye for an eye in this situation. And it's not out of spite or cruelty or trying to get a lick back, genuinely because these people cannot be saved. And all you would do by putting them to sleep, putting them to whatever you want to call it, you potentially save more lives. He must be MK program. This seems staged. This is so much an agenda is being pushed. Why does he have to be MK Ultra program? And I think you're saying you don't like it because it's a black man. Why does he have to be a black man? I mean, here's the thing. I don't think this is a race thing. I don't think this is a race thing. I think this is kind of like what Pastor Manning said, a God problem. There are so many people who are walking around who are mentally ill. The stuff that I'm seeing them do to children these days, the stuff that I'm seeing people do to their own children these days, it's like every time I turn on the news or every time I go on Instagram, I see a story about people doing unspeakable things to their own children, and they're of various races. What I will say is, it looks with black culture and black society, debauchery is so accepted and programmed into our culture because of the music and because of a lot of the enabling and the excuse making that we do, that I'm just going to keep it real. Especially in terms of black men, they are more susceptible to engage in activities like that. And that's not something you can argue with me. The crime statistics say that. The crime statistics say that they are committing most of the violent crimes. But so it doesn't, I mean, if there was the agenda is the music, but not only just that, how complicit in the way that we promote the behavior within our own culture. So there has to be some accountability that's being taken, is what I'm saying. But ultimately, it doesn't matter what race this man was. This could have happened to anybody. I don't, if I would have seen a white man that was kind of, again, you watch your surroundings. If I would have seen a white man that was talking to himself, I would not have gone and sat by him. But again, she didn't know to do that because we are primed to just kind of tune out. But I said that to say I'm not trying to blame her for what happened to her. This could have happened to anybody. And even under the best circumstances, when you're doing your due diligence and being aware, something could happen to you, but you're more than likely to see it or run away from it or have an opportunity to defend yourself if you are aware of your surroundings. If she would have noticed that he was talking to herself, she might not have even sat by him. So, like, even though I don't blame her, it's 1000% his fault. This is a learning opportunity for Americans to understand we no longer live in a high trust society where you can just get on the train, put your earbuds in, and tune out like that. And I believe he deserves the highest form of punishment. There's nothing that we can do for that man. And for anybody who engages in any type of activities like that, I believe in capital punishment. because people should be able to get on a train without having to worry about getting unalived by a random stranger who they did absolutely nothing to. But the unfortunate reality is we live in a world where you have to worry about a random stranger losing their mind or giving in to the demons that are talking to them and randomly unaliving you. Parents and kids are both horrible these days, and millennials are kids to me. So when the boomers die, it'll be kids raising kids. I mean, yes, a lot of millennials do have a childish mindset. I can't argue with that. Okay, so let's see what the mayor has to say about this situation. This kind of pissed me off. Excuse me. I got a long live today, y'all. Luckily, my camera's charged. Mhm. Was this it? Give me a second. Guys, y'all please smash the like button and share my content if you care. I had a video of what the mayor said. You know what? I'm going to go to April Chapman's channel. I'm going to go to her channel because she came with a lot of information on this. Shout out to April Chapman. I love her channel. I love it. Am I? What's going on? Okay. Sorry, y'all. Y'all know I'm on live. Things happen. I don't always got it together. Okay, so we're headed to April Chapman's channel. I'm gonna pull up a video. I'm not gonna play the whole video. I really don't like playing everybody's video all the way through, especially other YouTube creators. Okay, so this video is entitled Charlotte Light Rail Murder. Mayor defends criminal instead of victim. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share it. Guys, please smash that like button for me. Share my video if you care. Look
They'll
good
not
show.
among the
If your resume isn't getting traction, it might be time to change up your strategy and see what the data actually.
from was restored here.
Real quick, if you are interested in members only lives, I have one scheduled for 7:30 every Wednesday. The difference between a regular live and a members only live is I will be doing call-ins on members only lives. So I will be picking a topic. We will go more into the spiritual aspects. We'll talk about the politics, but I will also give you an opportunity to come up, give your opinion, and us have a dialogue about the situation. So members only lives every Wednesday at 7:30. Tap in and become a member.
Now, I'd like to mention a word.
Authorities tell WBTV he did not buy a ticket. Cat says it is working on ways to keep fare skippers off mass transit. Siobhan.
Okay, so I saw that's another point. I'm glad that they brought that up. So I see a lot of liberals or African Americans that are on the Shade Room and they are on Spiritual World and they are saying, well, what does that matter? How is that relevant that he skipped his fare? Well, the fact of the matter is he should have never even been there. He should have never even been there. And I don't understand why in a lot of American cities they cannot get control of the fare problem. Again, I told y'all, I've been living in Colombia for a year. And first of all, the metro in Colombia is way cleaner than the train system or the subway system in New York. And it's a big city. Medellin is a big city. And every time I get on that metro, nobody's eating, nobody's drinking. It's not allowed. Everybody smells like they took a bath. It doesn't smell like pee. It's very clean. There's no graffiti. And part of the reason why it's so clean is because they have police and security at every checkpoint. So there's no such thing as an unmanned or unguarded entryway. Everywhere where you have to enter into the system and pay fare, there is somebody there watching you to make sure that you pay a fare. And there's no rushing into it or trying not to be seen. No, 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 no. So because of that, it's very well funded and it's very clean. And I don't understand why in American cities we can't do the same thing. Because these cities are constantly saying that they're appropriating and allocating money towards the rail systems or subway systems and bus systems. So why can't we spend money to hire enough police, transit police, or security guards to make sure that people are not skipping their fare? And as y'all are going to see, apparently this railroad system is operating on the honor system, meaning like nobody checks to see if you pay to get on there. They just trust people to do the right thing. And what? That's insane. That is just delusional. Like in Colombia, they know people are going to skip fare if there are not transit police at every checkpoint. So they don't even discuss it. Like put them at every checkpoint. That's crazy to me. Only in the United States.
So let's just start with the facts. On August 22nd, a young woman by the name of Irina Zarutsky, a 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee who fled the war, and the goal was to build a better life here in America. And so she boarded the Lynx Blue Line in Charlotte, and minutes later, as you could see, well, you couldn't see, but you know what I mean, she was brutally stabbed in the throat by a man named DeCarlos Brown. DeCarlos is a 34-year-old homeless career criminal with a dozen of arrests, violent priors, and even recently some bizarre outbursts about man-made material.
This is why I say a lot of the times when you see people who are homeless, like I always question. I don't look at all homeless people as innocent because a lot of the times they have done things to where they have burned their bridges to where not even one family member is willing to take them in. Or they were unwilling to follow certain rules in order to get the help that they needed. This is not all homeless people, but a lot of the times this is the case. This is the case.
Controlling his body. I'm not trying to make light of that statement. I probably believe him when he talks about this man-made material controlling his body, but the nature of what we need to discuss right now is Irina. So Irina, she collapsed on that train and died moments after the stabbing. This was not an accident. This wasn't some misunderstanding. This was evil personified.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'd like to mention a word here that I'm using and will continue to use. They have referred to this gentleman as unhoused. Okay. And I'm not signing up for that. I
Mhm.
used the word homeless. Okay. So for the woke wardens who like to police language, I said what I said. I am not subscribing to your new lexicon of tomfoolery where you get to reimagine the English language because the words us regular normies use is offensive to you. Okay. I don't know who came up with the term unhoused. I think it's stupid. It doesn't make sense. It's unnecessary.
Earth to liberals, people were not put on this earth with the sole purpose of making sure that they do not offend you. If you never want to be offended, then this is not the place for you. Planet Earth is not the place for you.
But the term we're going to use for the purposes of this video is homeless. Now, you would think that city leadership would laser focus on justice for Irina, right? You think, well, yeah, of course, right? No, why would they do that? Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles issued a statement, and instead of centering on the victim, she told the public, let me take a look, let me show you. I'm going to show you exactly what she did. She puts up, or I have some screenshots where she goes, I want to be clear that I'm not villainizing those who struggle with mental health or those who are unhoused. There goes that word again. Okay. She continues and says, mental health disease is just that, a disease like any other that needs to be treated with the same compassion, diligence, and commitment as cancer or heart disease. Our community must work to address the underlying issue of access to mental health care. Then she doubles down by saying, we will
Why?
never arrest
This is
our
why this is
way
pissing me
out of
off.
issues.
This is why this is pissing me off. This woman, I think Harina is her name. Excuse me. I need to listen better. She was the victim in the situation. Point blank, period. Why does this mayor automatically feel the need to defend homeless people? And the message that she's putting out there, it is not safe. Do I think that all homeless people should be rounded up and put into a concentration camp? Absolutely not. But like the message that she's putting out there, this is how you get jacked up out here in these streets. I'm sorry. It's just true. People need to know that when you are around homeless people or people who are behaving in a way, they're talking to themselves, scratching on their, doing all that, like they're turning during a zombie apocalypse, you need to stay away from them. You need to stay far away from them for your own safety. People need to know to look around and be on alert for people like this. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. People, oh, you gonna stigmatize them or demonize them? Who cares? Who cares? Because let me tell you something. The homeless people that you shouldn't be stigmatizing or demonizing and they fall on hard times, a lot of times they don't stay on the street for years and years and years like that. They might be on the street for a little bit and then they go to a shelter and then they get the help that they need or they get into some, especially if it's like a woman who has kids, they get into some type of program. You are in a lot of danger if you are around a lot of homeless men. Let me tell you, I'm telling y'all as somebody who, again, I dealt with a mother who had schizophrenia. I dealt with childhood homelessness. At one point, we were in and out of homeless shelters. I knew there were certain places, even around the homeless men. Don't go around the back of the shelter because they grape women back there. That's what they would do. There were so many women that would come into the women's unit at the Salvation Army, and like on her way there, she just ended up walking in the wrong area. And they had a kind of like a halfway house at the Salvation Army for the men who were coming out of prison. And they catch you by yourself. You're getting raped, drugged behind a trash can, and raped. So anybody who wants me to be politically correct about the situation, I'm not, because I lived through homelessness and I understand the dangers that come with being in proximity to homeless people, especially homeless men, because they were the main ones doing stuff like that. It is not safe. So why do we have to lie and pretend like it is? Yeah, there were some homeless women that lived in the homeless shelter with me, that again, it was a situation where they might have had 2 or 3 kids, falling on hard times, or it might have been a single woman who was working at the Tom Thumb, so she was in some type of work program. Again, those type of people don't stay on the street for too long. They find a program, work the program, and get help. And they don't get kicked out the program.
Issues such as homelessness and mental health. She goes, mental health is a disease. Is just mental health disease is just that, a disease like any other that needs to be.
You're getting emotional, Jamal, but the fact, here's the thing. Here's what you're saying. I'm getting emotional thinking about this. I swear to you, Mariah, I never did this when I was homeless and living in a shelter. On the streets is terrible for the people and those on the streets as well. I'm not saying that every homeless person is going to harm you. I'm saying that when you are around homeless people, your chances of something like that happening exponentially increase. So if you're a person who knows that you don't engage in that type of behavior, you shouldn't feel the more important thing should be that people are safe and that they take steps and actions to make sure they are safe. It's kind of like even when we talk about the whole black fatigue thing, I don't care what people say about what black people do as a culture, because I know I'm not engaging in those activities. So I don't care if people are like, yep, be on the lookout for this type of behavior, or I don't want to be around XYZ. I get it. I don't want to be around that either. And I understand why you are taking precautions to make sure that you don't find yourself in particular situations. So those bullets don't hit my spirit and touch and agree with me when they fly. And it's the same thing. Again, I'm talking about homeless people as a person who has been homeless as a child.
Be treated with the same compassion, diligence, and commitment as cancer or heart disease. The part that I want to zero in on is we will never arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness and mental health. When she says we'll never arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness and mental health, we're not asking you to just randomly arrest homeless people.
Right.
That's not the argument, Ms. Laus. Arresting the criminals is exactly how you keep.
This man had several priors. Bring back 3 strikes and you're out. This man had felony charges. There's absolutely no way. As many mugshots as this man had, there is no reason for him to be walking the streets. Whatever happened to 3 strikes and you're out? I know they used to do that in California. They need to bring that back, and they need to bring that back everywhere. Because there's no reason why somebody should have a rap sheet that long and be walking the streets out here, especially when they're engaging in violent crimes, thefts, robberies. Somebody is bound to get hurt. It's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when. That person is a ticking time bomb. And honestly and truly, with the way that the job market is set up, if an employer, like an employer is never going to hire that person. They're never going to hire that person. So there's no point. There's no point in them being out here on the streets trying to survive. They're going to have to resort to crime. you're better off if it's a situation. Again, I don't feel like if they just commit random acts of unaliving like this man did, then capital murder, capital punishment. I'm sorry. But if it's a situation where, they've been robbing and doing all this kind of stuff and nobody has actually passed away from the situation, you are better off putting that type of person who seems to be in this cycle of crime and poverty and committing crimes of survival. You are better off putting that person in jail, having them work a little job in jail, get 3 hots in a cot, have access to, I'm not going to say that. Cause jail look fun. Like, I ain't even gonna hold you. I be watching the TikToks that they do. There's a lot of people in jail that have phones now. Jail is not what it used to be. They love going to jail. They be in jail making TikTok videos. They be in jail making videos for Instagram. A lot of them make a lot of money in jail. They be in jail exercising, playing games. So you get 3 hots in a cot. You don't have to worry about keeping a roof over your head. That's provided. And, it used to be that the men would go to jail because they don't have access, and they would hate it because they didn't have access to a woman anymore. But, they're sleeping with the female guards and each other. So they're getting all of their base level needs met. You get your food, you get your shelter, you get your water, you get clothes. And on top of that, all the smegs that you want. Not a bad deal. Not a bad deal. For somebody like that, that's not a bad deal at all.
The violent criminals off the street. You arrest them. You lock them up. This is why I always say that knowledge apart from the knowledge of God, you can't know anything because these people are ignorant. They are ignorant, crazy, and evil. When your worldview is so messed up, it's no wonder that you can make statements like this and not realize the error of your ways. This is something that a humanist would say. Let's just zero in and unpack what she said. We will never arrest our way out of issues such as homelessness and mental health. The issue here is not his homelessness.
Exactly.
The issue I want to zero in on, which we will talk about shortly, is his criminal behavior, his criminal background.
Welcome back to AI Border. After a long journey, I've finally returned home. And during this time, there have been a lot.
That's the part that I want to zero in on. What does Romans 13 say? The government exists to do what? It says civil rulers are God's servants to punish evil and to protect the innocent. But
that's in our Constitution. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is an unalienable right. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. At the very minimum, the government should do its best to protect life and be on the side of life. You shouldn't automatically jump to the defense of all homeless people when this particular homeless person who was also a criminal, like, let's take homelessness out of the situation. This is a career criminal, senselessly attacked a woman because he succumbed to the demonic thoughts in his mind. And she took this as an opportunity to be an activist for homeless people. Oh, I'm sorry, unhoused people.
Instead, we're not getting that. We're getting more compassion for the wolves than for the sheep.
Mm-hmm.
This makes no sense to me. This is the bigger issue here. The bigger issue is that this is a worldview clash. You have woke Democrats who believe that man is basically good and, they're just misunderstood or disadvantaged. So when criminals strike, which they do, their reflex is to sympathize with the offender. Yet the Bible tells us the opposite. Yes, all have sinned. We know that. But the role of government is to restrain evil. Let me read to you what Romans 13:4 says. For he is God's, meaning the government, God's servant for good. But if you do wrong, be afraid. Why? For he, the government, does not bear the sword in vain. For he is a servant of God, an avenger who carries out God's wrath on the wrongdoer.
The most compassionate thing, here's the thing, they like to talk about compassion. The most compassionate thing that you can do for a person like that is put them out of their misery. The most compassionate thing that you can do for a person that unalives somebody unprovoked because demonic spirits are talking to them and probably are never going to stop talking to them is put them out of their misery. That is compassion. That is compassion. Democrats like to preach this message that soft on crime policies are compassion. They say, oh, you got to look to the root of the cause. This person behaves this way because of their circumstance or environment. And though that is true for a lot of the cases, it disregards the fact that some people are just bad people. Some people are just evil. There are some people who enjoy committing crimes and doing the things that they do. They get a thrill out of it. It's not just a means of survival. There was absolutely no reason for him to do that to that woman. There are some people who could be making legit money, but they prefer to steal and rob and lie and manipulate. They get off on it. And I feel like when our prison system or our court system was more punitive, judges, they had more. I feel like judges used to be a little bit more reserved and practice a little bit more discernment when giving grace. You know, I said this before and I'll say this again. I grew up a juvenile delinquent, right? I grew up a juvenile delinquent. I was in and out of the juvenile system since I was like 11 years old. And a lot of it, y'all, was just me running away from home and me fighting, right? And I went in front of a lot of tough judges. And what I will say is, and I was in many situations where, you know, at one point I was facing being locked up for a very long time as a teenager. And the difference, though, was that people looked at my situation and they used their discernment and they knew actually, and there were other things. People knew that I wasn't going to grow up and be a statistic. And it was God. You know, sometimes God will move in people or allow people to see things about you. And their assumptions turned out to be true because once I turned 17, I stopped engaging in once I turned 18 and I could go to big people jail, I stopped engaging in those type of behaviors. And not just that, I stopped hanging around with people who I felt like, for example, I don't hang around people that I feel like intentionally put me in bad situations or people who are rude and disrespectful or things like that. I hang out with people who carry themselves with respect and who respect me and talk to me respectfully and I can talk to them respectfully, right? So I changed me, I changed my circumstances, right? And I do believe that in some circumstances, people are savable. In the vast majority of circumstances, they are not. They are not. And you will know this. Judges know this. Teachers know this, you know, because they deal with people on a day to day basis and they can tell these things. So I don't feel like there's a need for restorative justice. The only justice that there needs to be is the discernment and the case and the evidence that's brought before a jury and the discernment of the judge. Yes, I met plenty of those on the streets, just cruel and vindictive. You let them stay with you. If they are a woman, they will smash your man and steal from you. If they are a man, they may hurt family. Exactly. And that's why I say I believe in practicing compassion, but compassion doesn't always look the same. Sometimes being compassionate towards somebody is I need to let you feel the weight of your circumstance because you're not going to get it. You're not going to get it. Sometimes being compassionate does look like letting somebody come into your home and trusting them and giving them the opportunity. Sometimes compassion looks like what I said we should do with this man and give him a capital punishment. Because what type of life is he going to live walking around here with them demons talking to him, telling him to unalive people? Furthermore, compassion for the victims. It's not always about revenge. Revenge matters not to this girl. She's not here anymore. But and there's nothing we can do about it. But what about preventing this from happening to other people? If you have all these soft on crime policies, then what happens is, first of all, this gives people to go to think they can walk around here committing these type of activities. And then you end up letting these type of people back onto the streets to commit worse and worse crimes. And oftentimes it doesn't get better. It continues to escalate.
So instead of carrying the sword, Mayor Lyles and her fellow woke wardens are offering security blankets. They want to give criminals a slap on the wrist and a lollipop for good measure. This is why we need a resurgence. I'm serious. We need a resurgence of strong male leadership because men recognize and understand the absolute threat of violence. They understand. Actually, let me clarify. Masculine men recognize and understand the absolute threat of violence. Because we have men over on the left, but masculine men understand.
No masculine man that I know vote like truly masculine. They don't. No, I take that back. I know a couple. But the majority of masculine men that I know don't vote Democrat. And then the ones that I do that vote Democrat, when you actually talk to them, a lot of their values don't align with the Democrat Party. They just vote Democrat because they're black and they don't want to hear what their family members have to say. They just vote Democrat because of their race they're expected to. But when you actually talk to them about what they believe in their politics and what they think about family and what they think about relationship and what they think about how society needs to be run and they're Christians, both of the ones that I know, they're Christians. It's the complete opposite of what liberalism and what the Democrat Party promotes. So it doesn't make any sense, but such is life, right? But she's right. Most masculine men are not going to be Democrats because it promotes the complete opposite of what a masculine man would go. For example, the victim mentality. Masculine men don't walk around with the victim mentality. Masculine men walk around with a can-do attitude. They don't walk around with I'm just going to give up on life because life is not fair and then I'm going to blame everybody. No, masculine men know that they need to make it happen regardless. They need to figure something out. If you listen to a lot of masculine men, they're not going to sit up and listen to all that whining and complaining. They're very solution oriented. They don't want, even their women, when they're around women and women are doing all that complaining, they don't want to hear that. They want to be able to offer a solution. And if there's no solution to be offered, they don't want to hear any of that.
They understand that their job is to restrain and neutralize threats.
Oh, I'm sorry. I also was speaking about this when I talked about immigration. A lot of the men on the left, I say these low testosterone men on the left, they act like it's not dangerous. When you listen to a lot of these men on the right talk about illegal immigration, they're always talking about the fact that they are concerned that a lot of these military age men are coming over here alone with no wives and no family, and that poses danger to the women in the country. They're always considering this. So she's right. Masculine men's first inclination when they hear about things like this is to try to protect. And they understand that a lot of men need law, order, and enforceable consequences. It's the people on the left that don't want to accept that and want to pretend that we live in some type of utopia. And if you just give people the benefit of the doubt and give them money and housing and clothing and shelter, that will satisfy everybody and prevent people from committing crimes. And it's absolutely not the case. Will it prevent a lot of the crime? Yes, in the circumstance where you absolutely do have somebody only committing crime just because they're poor. But again, that discounts the amount of people who just don't want to do right. They would be committing crime under any circumstance.
But what are we seeing here? What we're seeing is not justice, that's for sure. We're seeing negligence. Negligence disguised as compassion. That's all restorative justice really is. Negligence disguised as compassion. And so,
welcome to Marylebone Square, our recently completed development in the heart of W1. This is our 2-bedroom plus study show apartment.
I want to zoom out a little bit. Let's zoom out and talk a little bit about restorative justice, because restorative justice is the new darling of the left, right? So instead of punishment, you get therapy circles and you've got all these NGOs getting fat off of taxpayer dollars, but there's no real accountability for the repeat offenders. Okay. And so, for example, take New York City schools. They rolled out a restorative justice program, and the goal was to reduce suspensions. But what ended up happening there? The police incidents shot up from about 1,200 in 2016 to over 4,100 by 2025. The chronic absenteeism hit 35%. In other words, the schools became chaotic and dangerous, all in the name of equity.
Oh, okay.
So my question is, exactly what was restored?
I'm glad she brought this up. Yeah, I feel like I've lived so many lives and have had so much life experience. I'll never, ever be ungrateful for the life that I lived, even though I went through a lot, because it's given me so much material. Like, I have so much content. But anyways, I used to be a teacher. I still teach English now, but I used to be a teacher at a brick and mortar school. And I remember, and the last time I was a teacher at a brick and mortar school was, 2024. So not too long ago. And I remember when I first began teaching, I was amazed at the fact that they didn't have ISS anymore. Like, they didn't have any ISS anymore. They had I forgot what we called it. Was it regroup or reset? Reset. This is a room that the kids could go to, and normally the teacher that was in there was young and cool and just there to collect their paycheck. So they had a teacher that they can go in there with and sit on bean bags, talk, listen to music, and their friends will go in there. And you would send the schoolwork with them to reset. They wouldn't do it. This is basically a break from school in school. What? Now, I remember for a little bit, I went to this high school in a suburb of Dallas called Mesquite. And when I tell you, they had the worst ISS. I mean, I hated this ISS. So what they would do for ISS is you would go into one big room and they had all these desks. And the teacher in there was old and she was mean. And if you just breathe too hard, she's looking up, ready to give you another day of ISS. Nobody can talk. All you can do is sit in there all day, quiet and doing schoolwork. And then you had to stay later than everybody. So you had to leave like an hour later than everybody. And it was so boring. And they would give you, I had a fight and they gave me 10 days of this. 10 days. 10 days of this, y'all. This is what I remember ISS being. Now they either suspend you and you get to go home, and your parents felt like you were in the right about the situation anyway. These young parents, that's how they behave. So you get to go home, they get to go home and smoke weed and watch TV and listen to music. So it's not a punishment. The only time it's a punishment is in high school because it might prevent you from getting credit for a class. But then at the end of the semester, they would just go sweet talk the administrator, and the administrator will let them do some type of credit recovery, some assignment that they were going to cheat on and still get credit for the class, right? Or they would go to reset and chill and have a good time. So there was no real punishment. And as a result, the kids acted a fool in school, right? They acted a fool. They didn't really cut up in my class because I took matters into my own hands. My students knew as soon as you walk into my classroom, if you even look like you have an attitude, I wasn't that type, "Oh my gosh, what's going on with you? How are you feeling?" This is not about your feelings. Now, if I had a student who came in from the jump and it was like, "Hey, Miss Brown, something is going on, XYZ," I would, and I knew this is not something they did every day, I would give them grace and I would consider that or let them go handle their business. But if you come into the classroom already popping your gums, you have an attitude, I ask you a question and you snap at me, get out. Get out, Miss Brown. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care where you go. You just got to get out of here. And like you would think that that would cause them to act a fool, but I don't know. It was something about that method to where, but and I was also a good teacher. I was a good teacher. I cared about my kids. I gave a lot of incentives. I was one of the few teachers who actually taught. So like after a while, they would kind of feel left out. They'd be like, "Oh my God, Miss Brown don't like me. She always put me out the class." So that would inspire them to get their act right, right? But I wasn't putting up with it. I was like, I'm not putting up with y'all's behaviors, your attitude, you not want to do your work, you want to text the whole class period. I'm not having that here. But that type of respect that I garnered in my classroom did not come from me always caring about my students' feelings. I honestly and truly do not care. We have things to do.
Here. Nothing. Another example. Let's look at San Francisco. In San Francisco's juvenile system, they went all in on restorative justice. Okay. But the results, the kids cycled in and out of the program without consequences. Some of them graduating to more serious crimes. Why? Because they were never given real punishment for the initial crimes. Any sensible parent who has raised children knows we know that this does not work. Why is it that these brain dead Democrats didn't get the memo? This is like gentle parenting for miscreants. You cannot gentle parent.
Yeah, I mean, again, when I was a kid, I'll say this again, I was a juvenile delinquent, right? But I had real consequences. For example, if you had a fight at the school, now if they have fights at school, all the administrator does is like write up a report and they might get 3 days of out of school suspension where they get to watch TV and play video games. When I was in school, if you had a fight, a couple of things are going to happen. You definitely were going to get ISS. You might get out of school suspension, but you're definitely getting a $300 to $400 ticket, and your parent is going to have to pay that ticket. Now they don't even give tickets, and the fighting is so bad that the administrators don't want to call the police up there because now you have a situation where with a lot of the school choice and parents being in open districts and parents being able to choose where their students go, the administration has incentive to cover up what's really happening at the school. So they don't want the police on their campus every time that there's a fight or the police car taking the kids off because they feel like it's going to be bad press for the school and it's going to scare people from going to the school, from enrolling their kids in school. But honestly, I would say this day and age, it might be best to have policies that let parents know that you are tough on crime because they'll know if I send my kid to this school and kids are trying to jump them or do something or harm my kid, those kids are going to go to jail or they're going to go do a stint in juvenile or whatever the case may be.
People who act like.
But I mean, again, the only parents that would probably enroll their kid in a school like that are the ones who are raising their kids right. The ones who know that they are not raising their children right are not going to put their children in a school where the administration holds them accountable. And that's just the fact of the matter. They're going to move them somewhere where their child can do whatever they want to do.
Caveman apes. They need consequences and lots of them and stiff penalties for their error. This is what happens when you take away actual justice. You end up breeding more injustice. Here's the truth about justice that we need to talk about. Because biblically speaking, justice requires consequences. Just like sin demands payment, i.e., a wage, if the wages of sin is death, biblical justice requires consequences. But when you have compassion void of justice, you get cruelty. And I get it. Some of you would say, well, April, what about mercy? Listen, mercy belongs to God. The government has a completely different assignment. The government's job is to protect the innocent, punish the wicked. Like, this is so simple and binary to me. This
Y'all
is
remember right before capital punishment, they tell those people, may God have mercy on your soul. Not the justice system. We ain't having no mercy. May God have mercy on your soul. She's right. That is not the government's that's not their responsibility to have mercy on you. If they do, it is a courtesy, and it is a courtesy that should only be bestowed upon those that a judge or a jury feels like would do right. And again, they see enough people to where they know their discernment tells them, right? But honestly, I don't think that we use capital punishment enough in this country. There are certain crimes, like a lot of these crimes that are committed against children, with these people trafficking and essaying these children, that should be punishable by death. All of this, oh, who are you to play God? No, that should be punishable by death. A lot of we are wasting taxpayers' dollars on people who should never be let back into society. It is a waste of money and space. These people do not understand the assignment here on earth. They think the assignment is for them to go around violating people. And again, I'm not saying for all violent crimes this should happen, but for certain things like trafficking of minors, these people who were like, I've seen so many people just like late brutally abusing children to the point where the children are dying. And these type of random acts of violence like this man committed on the train system, absolutely capital punishment, mandatory, not even a discussion, mandatory.
I tell you guys, my conservative politics flows from my biblical worldview. This is not difficult. I can see here in Romans 13 the whole idea of biblical justice. But when you try to divorce your politics from the faith that you claim to cling to, you end up with this foolishness. When leaders like Mayor Lyles preach compassion for the criminals while ignoring the victims, they're not being compassionate. They're actually being complicit.
Hello.
They're complicit. This is why I keep saying this is a worldview issue. Democrats have a fundamentally perverse view of the world. They're not grounded in reality. And at this point, the party itself is a danger to civilized society. Why? Because they're the ones pushing these types of policies, the restorative justice, the community.
You know what it is? It's like a selfish and narcissistic worldview. And I know this very well because I used to be a liberal. I told y'all when I was a liberal, I was a loser. I was a depressed, self-centered loser, right? And a lot of it stemmed from the fact that I went through a lot as a child. I did. I truly did. I've talked about my story here, right? But also, I think I had gotten used to the concept of like victimhood. And don't get me wrong, when you kind of start off with a bad childhood, I'm not denying the fact that it sets you behind. Like, no, I wasn't at the same starting point as the kids that I went to college with, who had rich parents. You know, absolutely not, right? But at the same time, that mentality of poor me, woe is me, somebody owes me something, that didn't do anything to help me either. And luckily, God showed me grace through those years, and now I have the mindset that I do. But I honestly did a lot of damage in my own life through that process, you know? And it wasn't until I began learning to take self accountability that I moved away from liberalism, right? But liberalism promote the reason why the compassion that they're talking about, it's not, they don't really promote compassion for the sake of others. This has to do with them projecting their own situations and them seeking compassion, mercy, grace, handouts, or whatever that might be from other people, you know? And so it's not really rooted in them wanting justice for other people just for the sake of that. A lot of that is them projecting the compassion that they wish people would give them. And like on the surface, that seems like a good thing, but it's really not, because that's rooted in you making excuses for yourself, or you feeling like somewhere along the way somebody owed you something that they didn't give you, right? So to me, that's not a good perspective and mindset to make decisions from either. Guys, please smash that like button. That helps people know that I'm on live. Oh, shoot.
Community policing. I'm not apologizing for saying this. If you are unable to view the world and apply basic logic and reason, you should not be in political office,
Mhm.
because this foolishness is getting people killed.
Mhm.
People are being harmed. Even this DeCarlos's own mama has been asking to get this man away from people because he is a threat. I want you to take a look at this. Take a look at this tweet. DeCarlos Brown, his rap sheet goes back to 2011 and includes felony larceny, robbery with a dangerous weapon, and communicating threats. Okay? This information was obtained from court records. He even served 5 years in prison for armed robbery, only to be arrested for assaulting his own sister just months after he was released in September of 2020. How is it, going back to 2011, this man's in his 30s now, felony larceny, robbery with a dangerous weapon, communicating threats. He's only served 5 years in prison for armed robbery, gets arrested again for assaulting his sister. This shows the rap sheet of this miscreant right here. When we analyze this, why is someone like this out on the street? Why is he not in jail? I'm sorry, Christian compassion does not.
Okay, Jamal, so you're saying that's why some of it is compassion and it helped me a lot. That's why I'm not willing to judge nobody, but everybody ain't me. Oh, I'm judging. I have a 9-year-old that I have to protect. So I have to judge people. I can't let everybody around my child. I can't let everybody in my household. I can't let her around everybody. That is who my first responsibility is to. That's the person I have the most compassion for. And because I have compassion for my child, I need to make sure I'm safe so that I can raise her. I need to make sure that she's safe. I can't be looking at people with long rap sheets or people who are walking around mentally ill and feel like it's a good idea to let them into our space. I just can't do it. That's who I have compassion for. That's where I choose to place my compassion.
Not necessitate.
It doesn't mean that I won't stop and give some money to a homeless person when my discernment tells me to. It doesn't mean that I don't look at a situation on a case by case basis in order to make a determination about somebody when something does happen. But I absolutely believe in generalizing, stereotyping, and pattern recognition being the most efficient way to keep yourself safe. But life don't always operate within those means, but it's very, very efficient, is what I'm trying to say.
Me to tolerate violent criminals or lawbreakers. I'm not obligated to do that. And speaking of law breaking, let me show you this one. Let's take a look at this. Can someone explain this to me? The Lynx Blue Line, which is the name of the rail system in Charlotte, is perhaps the city's biggest and most expensive use of the honor system. Hold on, y'all. Let me make this a little bigger.
This is crazy.
My eyes. Okay, listen. There we go. I wasn't about to sit here and act cute like I could read that. Y'all couldn't read it either. The transit system lets people board, wait for it, without checking for a ticket, and fare inspectors make periodic ticket checks and write $50 citations for scofflaws. But a review of data shows that few people are nabbed by inspectors, and the $50 fine is among the lowest of the nation's. Proof.
When I think about this in Dallas, that is how the train system is run as well. I mean, it's not called the honor system, but basically how the train system is run in Dallas is like most of the time there's nobody checking to see if you paid for the ticket. You just go to a station. Now there are places where you can purchase a ticket or you can purchase it on an app. But like you don't have to scan onto the train. You can just get on there and occasionally there will be transit police there to walk around and ask for a ticket. But like if you're somebody that's a fare hopper, the likelihood of that happening is, I mean, if you do it enough, eventually somebody's gonna come ask you for a ticket, right? But like if you want to do that like a couple times, the likelihood of somebody asking you for a ticket is very low. Uh, so I wonder if that's just standard across American cities. But again, I said this earlier for those of y'all who are just now coming in. That is the dumbest thing ever. Um, in Colombia, again, their train system is very clean, very efficient. It doesn't smell. It's not dirty. There's not a lot of graffiti. You don't get on there and I mean, I'm on there watching people. Like best believe I'm watching people. But you don't have a lot of people getting on the train and spazzing out like that. But they have transit police at every entry point into the rail system to be there. They're literally standing there and making sure that you scan your card that you put money on because you get on there with a card. So you got to go pay money at a booth. They put money on your Civica card, and then you scan it. And they're standing there watching you diligently to make sure that you scan that card before you're able to enter the system. And because of that, I mean, I'm not going to say they don't have any like fare evasion. I I'm pretty sure it's not as high as the fare evasion that goes on in American cities. I mean, I guess I could imagine a circumstance in which somebody was able to evade a fare. I don't think it happens that I don't see how it could happen that often. So if they're able to do this in Colombia, why can't we do this in the United States? In Chicago, on the Gold Coast, and in Toronto, in Rosedale, it's like that. Yeah, but it needs to be like that everywhere.
Of payment.
Because if you really think about it, the amount of money that you like, I guess you would have to do the math. Would it cost more to let people evade fare than it would cost to pay somebody to secure that entryway?
Light rail systems. Last year, fare inspectors issued 545 citations. Of those, a judge upheld the $50 fine for 368 cases. About 5 million passengers ride the links each year. That number will likely double starting Friday when the 9.3 mile extension opens. Can someone explain this to me? Can someone explain how any of this makes sense?
They're raising the fare, and what happens is the people who actually do pay are now having to pay for the people who don't pay. So when they decide that they're going to increase the fare, they calculate the amount of revenue that they're losing to fare evaders, and they pass that cost on to the people who actually do pay and who like would never evade their fare. So that's not fair. You know, if you had everybody paying their way into the system, it'd probably be cheaper and more affordable. So, for example, to get on the metro system in Medellin, Colombia, again, it's very efficient, very well manned, very clean. To get into that system, get off trains, connect to different trains in different areas, it's 75 cents. It's 75 cents. And I think the last time I bought a ticket to ride, I think it was like an all day ticket in Dallas was like $6. It was like a little over $6 for, and it's like, it's way more, and you're not even getting the same quality.
Are allowed to ride this train without much accountability. Like, y'all really don't understand the depravity of man. You really think you could operate in a metropolis like Charlotte, North Carolina,
Gotham
an
City.
honor system, and really think, oh, people just gonna pay? What is this,
No.
a free will offering? You guys, let's not get this twisted. We cannot be unshakable Christians while excusing evil in the name of compassion. Something simple as enforcing the law.
The biggest trick the enemy ever played on you is convincing you that he's not real. And that's one thing that I've noticed that has been on the agenda, especially like this is a very liberal agenda. This mindset of, again, the comments like, don't yuck my yum or do what makes you happy. A lot of debauchery and degenerate behavior has been promoted under a liberal agenda, and they have convinced you that a lot of the morally depraved behaviors that they seek to engage in are not evil. And let me be clear, I'm not saying that everybody who is a liberal is evil. That's not what I'm saying here. But a lot of those behaviors are rooted into giving into evil, lust, temptation, and the worst parts of yourself. And you'll know, you'll feel it in you that this behavior is wrong.
How do you have a rail system where it's more of an honor system, and if you break the law and you're on there without a ticket, the fine is $50, and you can't even get a judge to uphold the 500 some odd citations that were issued. He only upheld 300 some odd. First of all, can we talk about the leakage? Like the financial implications of this? How are you running a system and you're not adequately collecting a fare from the people who ride the system? And then for the ones who break the law to ride the system, you don't even collect the restitution from them, which was the $50 fine that they were supposed to pay when they got issued the citation.
Mm-hmm.
This makes no sense to me.
But like, this is
I'm sorry. I am a Christian. I cannot excuse.
This is what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying though, Jamal. This is a cycle, right? This is a self-inflicted cycle. So you say people can pay 75 cents, but in big cities, nobody wants to pay their coffee and their lunch money. And because the people that don't want to pay their coffee and their lunch money skip the fare, instead of the fare being low, the fare gets increased. And the people that, are like, I just need to do the right thing, they end up paying a higher cost. And then the people who like weren't going to pay the fare anyway, they're looking at the fare just going up and up, and they're like, I'm not going to pay that. I can't afford to pay that. That's going to take away from my coffee and lunch money. So it's like their decisions are affecting the people who actually do pay. And then it continues to get increased, and they use that as even more of a reason to not pay. And it's just a cycle that creates itself. Versus if everybody was paying their share, then you wouldn't need to increase the fare as much as they do. And again, I'm saying this as somebody who has seen it. In Medellin, Colombia, it's 75 cents to get on the metro. Now, to be clear, to them that seems like a lot more money, but because they enforce the fare, I'm sure I have to look into it. Because they enforce the fare, that's still pretty low. That's still pretty low even for them, because you'll see all type of people uh on the and everybody uses the metro there. Everybody, those train carts are so full. So it's very well funded.
Use evil in the name of compassion. Romans 13 makes it plain. Rulers exist to bear the sword, not to sing kumbaya with the criminals. Y'all, how about this? Here's a happy medium. You want to sing kumbaya with the criminals? Fine. How about we do so while they're on the inside of a prison cell, not among the rest of the population? That's a happy medium. But for the rest of us, we want to demand.
That's where you have the prison chapel that come in. The prison chapel, they need to do these people how they do those men in Sacat in El Salvador. I think some of these people need to be behind bars 24 hours a day. And in Sacat, I think they come out and they can exercise for about 30 minutes. And then immediately after, the prison chapel talks to them and they're right back in that cell. Yeah. hmm That's what I'm saying. Another issue in this country is the fact that prison is fun now. They love it. They love prison. Used to be in prison, you had to pitch a tent. Now, again, they're in prison with cell phones. They get access to all the illicit substances they want. I don't think women should be working in men's prisons and men should be working in women's prisons. They got that going on. So they're not missing out on any funny business, if you know what I mean. And then on top of that, because of the ideology that's been promoted, I'm sure I'm sure if you go back 20 years ago, men were sleeping with men in prison. I feel like that has increased to where that is like the norm. Like you're probably a rare occurrence if you go to prison and you're in there for years and the entire time you never engage in any of that activity. Okay. So they're having a ball in there.
Real justice and call out these woke wardens who are more interested in thinking or believing that they can rehabilitate the wolves rather than protecting the sheep.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that we cannot
let me tell y'all
do a
something.
both and approach, but
Don't
right now there's no.
Don't ever put me in a position of power. Don't ever do it. Especially, look, African Americans like to talk about the white man's justice and how bad and evil the white man is. Don't ever put me in a position to make laws on crime. Don't do it. I already told y'all. A lot of these cases, it automatically, we are not even discussing this. This doesn't even need to go up. As soon as they say guilty, okay, the sentencing, we can do it right here. Uh, Death penalty. Which way? Uh, whatever which way. Just as long as they're up out of here. Okay. I'm not even giving you enough time to get a last meal. That's too much of a courtesy for some of this. You need to immediately be taken to the back of the courthouse, and we need to do our business here automatically. For the people who are like in and out of jail all the time, you seem like you like this life of crime, you seem like you love jail. We're going to make you a forever resident and you are going to do slave labor on behalf of the state because you might as well make yourself useful. Matter of fact, it's not even slave labor because the American taxpayer has to spend their money housing you. You are just paying back your debt to society at this point. But we might as well make you useful. hmm hmm Yeah. Never give me any kind of power or authority. Mm.
Both and. The compassion is lopsided and it is misdirected. Let's show compassion to these individuals who are dealing with legitimate mental health issues, but they have to be separated from the rest of the population. And yes, if they're guilty of a crime, that means prison. You don't have to like it and you feel, oh, it's not fair. He just
Make insane asylums great again. There, I said it. Bring back the insane asylums. I think that's probably one of the worst things that we ever did was get rid of insane asylums. Because there are people who are walking around here mentally ill who don't necessarily commit crimes, but at the same time, you can't really trust them enough to be in the general public. And I think what we did with the insane asylum thing is we threw away the baby with the bathwater. Now, to be clear, when you have mental patients who are mentally ill, they are more susceptible to being mistreated or abused if there is not a lot of oversight, over the insane asylum. Let's bring it back. Let's bring them back with some more oversight. And honestly and truly, for a lot of them, that's their best bet. If you have somebody that's so insane that they'll never like reintegrate back into to society, the best thing you can do is put them in an insane asylum where they get 3 meals, 3 hots and a cot, and they have activities, kind of like a retirement home. So, they get to play chess and have karaoke night, and they get to have group therapy, and they don't have to worry about a place to stay. They just get, the benefit that we have to funding this is that they get to be away from us. We don't have to deal with the foolishness. But if it's a situation where they haven't like severely physically hurt somebody, just put them in an insane asylum. Put them in a well guarded, well staffed insane asylum. Pay those people well. Prosecute anybody who does anything like essay them. Have good oversight and make sure that there's cameras everywhere and things like that. Yeah, bring them back, make them great again. And here's the thing. I hate that I have to say it like that because let's be clear. Your mental health, everybody's mental health is so fragile. Sometimes it could just take one thing to push you over the edge, right? And again, I'm saying this is somebody who has a mentally ill mother, right? Um, and because of that, I'm like very serious about taking care of my own mental health. You are blessed to be able to walk around here with being in your right mind. And I say this all the time. There are people who didn't wake up in their right mind. That's enough to thank God for, right? And I have compassion for those who are walking around here and they are out of their mind. That doesn't negate the fact that everybody else needs to be safe. And again, like I said, that is not a bad deal. If somebody's walking around here and they're mentally ill and it's to the point where they're becoming less and less functional, that is not a bad deal for them to be in an insane asylum, 3 hots in a cot. You don't have to worry about the troubles of life like the rest of us. You don't have any rent or bills to pay. Somebody else cooks your food. You get to play chess. Come on now. That's a great deal, actually.
look him crazy. Okay, well, him being crazy needs to be separated from the rest of the population, and he needs to be restrained by enacting stiff penalties for his error. You don't get to claim crazy and hurt people, murder people all under I had not really known what I was doing.
Yeah,
that's not gonna work. I'm sorry.
Absolutely not.
This is a very sad and unfortunate story. I hate that this young woman just got here. She ain't even been here 30 days yet, trying to just start her life for this to happen. But I'm curious to know from you guys, what do you guys think? First, let us make sure that we keep the family of Irina in our prayers. What a tragic way to die and lose your life after fleeing a war-torn country. Only to come to America to have this happen to you.
Fact.
But did anything that I say resonate with you? Like, what do you think about?
And you know what's the crazy thing? I bet you Ukraine, pre-Ukraine Russia war, They weren't having that foolishness over there. Not at all. Um, D. Malley says Judge Brown. Yeah. Okay, I'd be worse than Joe Brown. He was too lenient. Okay. When I was a teenager, we had this judge, a juvenile judge called Lock 'em Up Lewis, and everybody hated to go before her. I had to go before her one time because she wasn't trying to hear all those excuses. Okay, you was acting a fool before your court date. You doing some time in juvenile. Okay, she putting you away for a while. You gonna sit down. You gonna do that time. Yeah, I would have some type of nickname, okay? Because everybody would know the criminals would be sweating before if they were coming before me, they would be sweating. They would be sweating bullets. They would already know what time it was. Okay, under your administration, me and D. Malley from Cali can work there. Where at the insane asylum? Come on, work or the prison? Yeah, whichever one. Come work there. Help me out. Okay, I had something else I wanted to talk about. Let me go to Benny. I planned on being on here for a while. I can't believe that camera is not dead yet. Let me see. Oh, let's see what Benny Johnson has to say. Let me go on over to his channel.
To things, these catalysts get them. DeCarlos Brown.
So they're talking about the same situation.
Jr. should have never been on the street in the first place. Right. And mandatory minimums and judicial reform is something that Congress can do, correct? They can, no question about it. These are the types of things, these catalysts get them involved into these situations and these policy discussions. And quite frankly, this is where the American people are. They want the safety to return to our communities, to our buses, et cetera. And they want criminals to be punished for the crimes they commit, not to be continually let out of prison. But the way this works is so frustrating from a media standpoint. As you said, I've been doing media now for 25 years. You know, I'm friends with Sarah Sanders, as are you. I met her when she was 19 because I worked for Governor Huckabee when he was governor, the first Governor Huckabee, not Sarah. And if the criminal is a white person shooting up whatever public venue, then the narrative is this is a national epidemic. It's guns, it's racism, it's whatever, and every media outlet rushes to cover it.
He's not lying. And again, minorities love to talk about, oh, all they show was like black people on the news. But like, let's be for real. Whenever we see a school shooter and it's a white person, it's making national news. And we're pointing out the fact that they're white. We're pointing out the fact that they're white. Absolutely. We are. Now, me personally, I don't do that. Even with DeCarlos Brown, I'm like, this, to me, this is more of a demons. Are there some people walking around here who are more susceptible to demonic possession because they're more primed to, because of the things that their culture promotes? Yes. But let's be clear, there are homeless people of other races who are violent. I would not, if a white person, if I walked onto that train system and I saw somebody who was behaving in the manner that DeCarlos Brown was, I would not want to be by them or sit anywhere near them. And that's why I say, put that phone up and take your earphones out when you are on public transit. Train yourself to do that.
If the role is reversed and it's a transgender shooter or an African-American shooter, whatever, then it's a local story. See, it doesn't raise to the national level. It doesn't match the narrative they're trying to cram down our throats that is completely false, completely fictitious. This is a great example of that. And you notice, if there is a shooter, if there is an attacker with a knife, you know everything about that person within an hour if it's the narrative the media want out there.
Yes.
If it's not, you don't hear about it for weeks, or it's just suppressed, like the shooter in Nashville, for example. We still don't know everything about that.
Yeah.
This is the type of behavior that causes the press to be so
vilified and distrusted. And it's because of it's a problem of their own making. When you continue to lie to us for years, what do you think we're going to do? Trust you when you bring a story forward that you may actually have good information on? We're not, because you have so lost credibility with us, the American people, for the repeated lies. We're not going to pay attention to you anymore. And it shows you the rampant political agenda of so many in the mainstream media, because bias occurs in two ways: what you decide to cover and how you decide to cover it. In this particular instance, you're seeing it on full display.
Hogan, I'm so sorry that
Also, too, like, I want to bring this up too. People need to start learning to judge a book by its cover. Why do I say that? First of all, bring back background checks. Like, you need to be whether you're a man or a woman. Because I'm just thinking about, again, all of the harm and violence that I'm seeing going on in households, particularly directed at children, and a lot of these children getting alive in their own homes by a boyfriend or a stepmom. Y'all need to bring back background checks. But furthermore, in majority of the cases, when I look at these people mugshots, I be like, you couldn't tell that this person at the very least had a criminal record. I remember I had a friend, rest in peace. She's no longer with us. Rest in peace. And I loved her. She's a sweet girl. And one of the most loyal friends ever. But I remember she was dating this guy. And I could look at him and tell this man has some type of record. So, like, for me, that alone would have prevented me from dating him. Like, I would have never been seen anywhere. If she never brought him around, me and that type of man probably would never even be in the same vicinity. Like, unless I was at Walmart and then I stopped shopping there. Okay. If I was in the United States, I'd probably still have to shop there right now. Everything's so high. But I'm like, girl, you could not look at him and tell. Somebody told her something. She ended up doing a background check, and he was a child. He was a PDF file, and she had a son. And luckily, nothing had happened to her son yet. She caught it quick enough. But if she would have been judging that book by its cover, she wouldn't have never even been with him, is what I'm trying to say. Right, and there are so many situations. I don't know if y'all seen this situation with Mariah the Scientist. She's a singer, and Young Thug, he's a rapper. He's in the news because all of his jail calls are getting released, and of course, he's admitting to cheating on her and sleeping with all these women, and just all his dirty laundry is being put out on the street. And everybody's like, "I feel bad for her. I feel bad for her." And I'm looking at him. If y'all look at him, people are saying he looks like he snuck on Earth. He looks like some type of creature. He definitely looks like the thug that he self-proclaims himself to be. And I don't feel bad for this girl at all. At all. Because I'm like, you cannot look at him and tell that that is not the type of behavior that he indulges in. This is giving the usual suspects. So let's bring back stereotyping.
we have like a short period of time to discuss this. I was hoping we could talk for an hour on this,
Sure.
but because of the president, because of the live news and so on, I just wanted to like in conclusion, I just wanted to put this up on screen, please. Please bring this to your members. Please bring everyone in Congress listens to Hogan. Like smart Republicans, they all listen to Hogan. They all bend the knee and say, "Okay,
I wish that were true.
Maestro, like what shall we do?" Please show them that this isn't a 70-30. This isn't an 80-20. This is a 99-1%.
It is.
This is the most winning issue in the country.
Yep.
99% of Americans say this is a problem. Only 1%, who are the criminal element, most likely, say it's not. So I just cannot. The floor is yours. Maybe perhaps you could like elucidate for us, like what could Congress do in order to fix this? Like, is this something that'll be on Speaker Johnson's priority list, and so on?
Of course, and it's always on Republicans' priority list. I mean, for the life of me, from a political.
I mean, this is true, and Republicans are using the situation that's going on with Trump saying that he wants to basically, federalize Chicago's police. They're using this as an opportunity to point out the fact that in big cities in red states that we have a high crime rate, but they're leaving out the fact that in those cities they are run by Democrats. If you go to the top 10 worst cities for crime in the United States, they're all they're all Democrat run. And then what happens is, like, for example, I'm from Dallas. It's Democrat run. We know that when you go to the outskirts of Dallas, like, for example, in Dallas, you have Dallas, and then to the south, you have DeSoto and you have Lancaster. We know the further out you go towards the outskirts and then to these more like rural areas, the more red it gets. So we already know when you drive through there, you better drive the speed. Like, we people know where to go to do stupid stuff, is what I'm saying. We know that we cannot go to the red counties and act a fool. They're on us like white on rice for the smallest thing. People know they can go to Dallas and do the most. It is what it is. So even in these blue cities, you'll have people that live in blue cities that be like, yeah, I never go to this. I never go to this county, or I never go to this city. We already know what time it is. Violent crime is most definitely out of control. I don't want the 94 crime bill again. That's what we need at this point. We need a reset. We need a reset. Okay. Bring back, make prison miserable again. Just playing. I'm just playing. I'm just playing. I feel like depending on what the crime is, there needs to be levels to this. There needs to be levels. But honestly, I feel like if it's a situation where you need to be in a I don't think maximum security prison should exist. I feel like if you need to be put in a maximum security prison, then we just need capital punishment. I feel like if you can't be in general population, then why are you here? If you're so bad that you can't be in Gen Pop, you definitely need to just capital punishment. Let's get it over with. And some people don't like that because they're thinking about the, and this is where we have to make sure that we get a lot of these corrupt DAs out. We need a complete overhaul of the system, because the argument is that, like, you could accidentally unalive somebody who didn't do it, right? And that's valid. But I feel like in a situation where you could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt, like this situation with this video, we can prove beyond a shadow. Like, we don't even have to go to court. We can really just skip the whole judicial process. We know with absolute certainty, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that he unalived this girl on the train. It's on camera. Why should a person like that be put in a maximum security prison? What is the point? Like, just get it over with.
Standpoint or a pragmatic standpoint, you'd think Democrats would say, you know what, 99% of the country wants safety and security, so I'm going to try and lean that direction. Instead, they continue to side with the criminal. It blows my mind why they think this way is going to win them something when it just gave us.
Well, I've told you why they side with the criminals. In a lot of the cases, like I've said, this is a mentality that is very pervasive in the Black community. And I'm just using this as an example. This is not only like, because again, you will find people of all different races. This is just liberals in general, right? But like, I can only speak to this demographic that I know. In the Black community, the reason why a lot of Black people, Black women more so than Black men, take a soft on crime stance is because a lot of them have sons, and they see their sons in these criminals. Does that make sense? Like, and I know y'all are thinking like, oh, no, they just think their sons are angels and will never do nothing. No. A lot of the times, like when I talk to these mothers, y'all got to understand, I used to work with these moms and their sons. The mothers enable the behaviors. They know that their sons are out here doing wrong. So even if their son hasn't been to jail yet, they see that there's a possibility that my son could get caught up in the prison system. So they see this as a way of them siding with their son, right? Or potentially siding with, if they have a black husband, siding with their husband, it's that type of thing. They're not really thinking about the victims or the people that could be harmed in the situation. This is more so protecting what they see as their interest. I feel like with a lot of white people, with a lot of white liberals, their tendency to want to side with the criminals has to do with white guilt. Like they feel like they owe because of slavery. Even though like a lot of them didn't, like the majority of these people didn't even come from families that owned slaves, they have been conditioned to believe that they owe a debt. Like they owe a debt to black people, or minorities, not even just black people. They owe a debt to minorities in general. So they see this as them somehow absolving themselves from the sins of their forefathers, even though chances are their forefathers never owned slaves. Okay.
Crushing problems for the last 4.
And it's all manipulation. It's all manipulation. It kind of reminds me of like in Colombia. In Colombia, it's so easy. You're like Americans are so easy to manipulate in Colombia because Americans go to Colombia with this mindset of, oh my gosh, I come from a country that is like, America, we have way more resources than them. And these people here are struggling. And like the average Colombian, that's like a Colombian will see another Colombian running game on you, and they're not like, wow, that person is just so nice and compassionate for allowing this person to take advantage of them because they really need it. Another Colombian will be looking at, they'll see them running the play on you and be like, what a dumbass. They're so dumb. They see you as naive. So it's not having the effect that you think that it's having, is what I'm trying to say. Most white people descend from, well, I don't want to say they're white. I mean, most white people descend from working class families. Most people in America descend from working class families who own slaves, like Scamala Harris. Yeah. I mean, but to be fair, black people own slaves, Native Americans own slaves. Like, the majority of the slave owners were white, but let's be clear, they like it wasn't just rich white people that owned slaves.
4 years under Biden, and they also ran on it and lost on it in the last election on the defund the police movement. This is clearly a byproduct of that, and suburban moms are going to want safety for their children, for their own families when they're walking down the city streets.
Exactly.
This is why, for the life of me, I can't understand why Democrats are they could easily say, look, we have a problem and we need to fix it.
Because again, this goes back to what April Chapman is saying about where you choose to place your empathy and compassion. These people absolutely choose to place their empathy and compassion on the side of criminals before their children. Like their guilt, their guilt or them feeling the need to protect their sons far outweighs any concern and compassion they have for their daughters or the small innocent children that live with them. Their desire for their low life boyfriend who's in and out of jail to get out of prison to come home far outweighs their desire to be able to raise their children in a happy and healthy environment. But this is what happens when you promote a culture of degeneracy and not a culture of discipline. Because disciplined people know how to prioritize things much better than undisciplined people. Like obviously, my child's safety comes before my prison bay. Matter of fact, if you're a disciplined woman, you don't have a prison bay.
We don't like the way Trump's doing it, but whatever. They're saying we don't have a problem at all. I mean, talk about whistling past the graveyard here. They don't realize there's a problem or they're fighting against it. And this is the lived experience of so many people in DC and other major cities. We see the crime. We watch it in front of our faces every single day with open air drug deals, drug use, the homeless population that is attacking people, causing traffic problems, not to mention the
That's why I'm so confused now that liberals are trying to play dumb. Again, this kind of reminds me of that situation that I was just telling you about, where when an American comes to Colombia and a Colombian is running game, telling a sob story to take advantage of that American, and you have like other Colombians looking like, oh my God, you're so dumb for letting this person take advantage of you. Like, I feel that way when I hear liberals and minorities or people that grew up in poor neighborhoods give these sob stories to white people who then go for it. Because I'm like, bruh, I grew up with y'all. I saw the stuff that y'all did on a day to day basis, not even necessarily because you had to, but because you wanted to. Like, you enjoyed this stuff. You are never going to get no act right. Never. This is a lifestyle for you. And yeah, there were some who was like who were doing what they needed to do out of survival. Obviously, anytime you have high poverty rates, people are going to do things out of survival. But then there are some who are just low down, dirty, and foul. And people in the hood know that. Like, people that live in the neighborhood know, don't fool with such and such. Don't go around such and such. Yeah, watch that one. Yeah, he a snake. Did it? We know. And these be a lot of times, oftentimes these be the same people that y'all be going so hard defending in mainstream media. And it's like, go talk to the people in their neighborhood about them and see what they have to say. Not their mother, not their family members. I'm talking about everybody along the way. Ex-girlfriends, all of that. Ex-boyfriends. Talk to them. But private prison industry is big in the Democrat donor base. So do the math in your head. Wackenut Corrections Corporation of America, big Hillary Clinton donors. That's what I'm saying. I feel like there's an opportunity to collaborate. If Democrats want to make money on prisons, well, then there's an opportunity for collaboration there because Republicans want to send people to prison. So, like, why can't we get along? Why can't we get along?
carjackings and the murders and the rapes and the burglaries, all these things that happen every day in DC. They're acting like it doesn't happen. But the people living in these cities 100% feel it. They need to come to the table and try and work with Republicans, work with Donald Trump to say, all right, let's figure out some solutions here, instead of saying, well, if this person stabs a young lady in the back, by the way, didn't have the guts to get in front of her face. Also, let's just how much he outweighs this young little girl. He wouldn't even get in her face. He had to do it from behind, of course, which is cowardly to the nth degree. Doing that type of stuff and Democrats defending it as if, well, somebody just must have wronged him over his life period. That's the problem. It's the criminals just misunderstood. Or how about this? Regardless, the criminal made an illegal act multiple times, was let out of prison multiple times, and now you're somehow still blaming the victims or the people that want safety and security. It baffles my mind.
Hogan, we've got to have Arena's law. We've got to have something like that for repeat offenders like this. There has to be a law on the books that ties the judge's hands. We've seen it before, time and time again, that make mandatory minimums that tie the judge's hands. We should never be able to show like mugshot sequences like this ever again. There should be like a 3 strikes, you're out style rule, and there should be like swift death penalties for crimes like this.
Yeah, for that, like, I'm sorry. So he was saying, I'm sorry, I don't know if y'all can still hear this, but Benny Johnson was saying like he feels like there should be swift death penalties for actions like that. I absolutely agree. Something in a situation like that where the act is caught on camera, I don't see why we have to wait like years and years, wait for appeal, wait for that. No, absolutely not. That's too lenient. Just as soon as they get the guilty verdict, sentence them right there, take them out back, and handle it. And it doesn't need to. We don't even need for a crime like that. We don't need to be worried about it. It's humane. I don't understand. Bring back hanging. It's the cheapest way to do it. I don't understand why we have to when a situation like that where you have somebody who murders somebody in cold blood, completely unprovoked. Why do we have to waste resources and trying to obtain these chemicals and uh all like it's too much. It's too much. This is real simple. We do too much sometimes. Okay, I had one more thing I wanted to talk about before I get off of here. JD Vance, y'all. JD Vance, I feel like JD Vance is already running for president. Yeah, I'm gonna explain to y'all why. Y'all, he is funny. He is hilarious. I'm sorry. I don't now, I could do a whole video on him, and honestly and truly, I'm not all the way sure. I mean, obviously, if I had to choose between JD Vance and whoever the Democrats would put up at this point, I mean, they don't really have any contenders here. And I don't like their agenda. Like, even if here's the thing, the Democrats are so untrustworthy that even if there was a candidate that ran in the Democrat Party that I liked and I agree with their policies, I still wouldn't vote Democrat. And the reason why I wouldn't vote Democrat is because you can't trust the party. You can't trust the party. Okay, so I'm going to share this from Politico. You said JD Vance is your baby daddy. He is a happily married man. I'm trying to think. If he was single, would I date JD Vance? Probably not. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Don't hold me to that. But he's not. So, okay. Vice President JD Vance defended using American military for unaliving cartel members that bring drugs into the United States on Saturday, dismissing a critic who asserted a recent airstrike on a boat allegedly trafficking drugs was a war crime. So this is what the person said: killing cartel members who poison our fellow citizens is the highest. Sorry, this is what JD Vance said. I'm sorry. Killing cartel members who poison our fellow citizens is the highest and best use of our military, Vance posted to X on Saturday morning. He then engaged in a back and forth with Brian Krasenstein, an anti Trump social media influencer and podcaster, who said, killing the citizens of another nation who are civilians without any due process is called a war crime. I don't give a shit what you call it, Vance replied. Wow. Okay. The interaction between the vice president and a critic comes days after the Trump administration ordered an airstrike against an alleged drug vessel leaving Venezuela, which President Donald Trump said was aimed at the Venezuelan Tren de Aragua group, killing 11 suspected traffickers. Please let this serve as a notice to anybody even thinking about bringing drugs into the United States of America. Beware, the president wrote on Truth Social. So, yeah, the dude was basically trying to say, oh, that's a war crime. Like he was trying to use a shaming tactic. And JD Vance was like, we don't care. Now, the explanation that the administration has given in regards to people saying, well, you should not be able to blow a cartel ship out the water without due process because we as the American people, like, yes, we see these images that y'all are showing us, but like, do we really know that these are cartel members? So basically they said, look, we've tried apprehending these people, but it's not scaring them. So now they know that as soon as you leave the port, you're going to get blown out of the water. And though I see the argument of the other side who's like due process, due process, due process, I absolutely understand this logic. Like if we even think what that would let me know if I was a civilian in these countries is to like don't even look like I'm about to smuggle some drugs. But here's the thing. I mean, the military has been dealing with this. The military, the Coast Guard, they've been dealing with this long enough to where they know what it looks like. They know what it looks like, you know? And are you going to have some instances to where uh civilians get unalive? Probably. Probably. So honestly and truly, I don't know how I feel about this. But what I will say is I'm absolutely here for in terms of them trying to stop the flow of drugs into the United States. I'm absolutely here for it. And maybe this is a situation that calls for extreme measures, kind of like the situation with Bukele in El Salvador. People said the situation in El Salvador could never be fixed or get cleaned up, or that you couldn't stop criminal activity in these Latin American countries. And look at El Salvador now. It's one of the safest countries in the entire world. It's even safer than the United States. El Salvador. And I remember, I'm from Texas. I remember there was a point in time where Salvadorians were fleeing that country and pouring into Texas like nobody's business. And now they love their country. They want to stay and they love their president. And the economy is doing relatively well as compared to most places in Latin America. So, I mean, is it the right thing to do? I don't know, but I definitely see their logic. If they're like, okay, well, obviously us stopping y'all and y'all, I mean, because the argument is that they already expect a certain amount of product to be lost and a certain amount of their ships to be apprehended. So they're accounting for that loss. But now you know every time you leave these waters, not only are you risking your product, but you're literally risking your life every time you get onto these ships. And if they do that enough and efficiently enough, and if they like, eventually people will be scared to step into the water, is what I'm trying to say. So you want to go back to Reagan, Bush, Clinton, and the war on drugs? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Why not? As opposed to what? Like, yes, absolutely. 100%. Our communities would be safer. 1000%. Mhm. Because, like, here's the thing, a lot of people are not walking around here living right. They're not walking around here living right. So I'm against all these soft on crime policies. Now, there are certain situations where I feel like, for example, people that like are users of drugs absolutely should not get 30 years in prison because I don't know, I don't do drugs, but because they had a bag of coke or something like that, right? But if it's a situation where you are distributing these drugs, like the amount of fentanyl overdoses is outrageous. So if it's a situation where you're distributing these drugs that have fentanyl in it, you absolutely should go to prison for 30, 40 years. Absolutely. I think the Obama way worked. Any way is better than what's going on now with these soft on crime policy. I don't know. I don't know. But we can't continue on like this. If they're gonna wage war on cartels, then people who are at least at the very least fentanyl. I don't know about coke or any of that, but like distributing products that have fentanyl in them knowingly, because there are people who are knowingly distributing products that have fentanyl in them, that should carry a very hefty sentence. Okay. With that said, guys, I have been on here for 3 hours. This was a very long live. My throat hurts. Thank you, Jamal and Malley, for participating in the chat. Smash the like button on your way out. Share my video if you care. And I will see y'all tomorrow. Probably come on around the same time. All right. Goodbye.